You're listening to the Gettin Salty Experience podcast.
And here we go again. Welcome back, Leatherhead Nation. Welcome to the Gettin Salty Experience podcast. It's the only one that brings the Firehouse kitchen table to you and all the great hard-charging guests that we have on. We got a good one tonight. We got a really good guy tonight. Wealth of experience. A lot of times on the... He might be a goat. Do it, Pete. He is a goat. We get a lot of goats around here, I'll tell you that much.
We're doing all right.
Yeah, every time we
what's going on with that light over there? You look like you're in like a sauna or something. What's going on over there?
I don't know. Got better?
Now you're being interrogated by the CIA, and they're trying to find out where Osama is.
Osama. I love that last one.
I love when she's screaming.
Every time we have a guest like this, I'm like, how are we going to top this one, Ruff? Every time. You know what I mean?
Keep doing it.
Oh, we keep doing it, you know?
I don't like to take sides, though. You know what I mean? Every guest is, you know, I
don't ever take sides with anyone against the family again.
I never take sides.
Never. Again, Fredo.
You're my brother, and I love you. But don't ever take sides against the family.
He still kills him.
He loves fishing.
Doesn't matter how many Hail Marys he's saying. He's going to drink.
He had
say 50 Hail Marys.
He was fishing too. I think he was fishing.
Yeah, man. Yep.
You don't know how these catch. You don't know how guys like Mo Green operate. This is
nobody
Vegas.
talks to a guy like Mo Green like that.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yep. Except for Michael.
You know what he gave himself up? You know how Michael knew? He said, "Oh, Johnny Ola knows these places like the back of his hand." But meanwhile, Fredo told him that he never met Johnny Ola before in his life. So Fredo upped himself, bro. Loose lip sink ships.
And then he went out on that boat and he got the old.
What he got? He did.
Deserved it.
What is that hat you got on there tonight, Ruff? What is that? A duck hat?
My Ducks Unlimited, yeah.
Ooh. You were out there shooting them tonight. Did you get anything?
No, I didn't get anything. We had a bunch fly over, but I couldn't. A little too far. Couldn't reach out and touch them. Yeah,
a gunsmith like you couldn't reach him too far.
What would you have? What were you shooting?
12 gauge.
Bird shot, right? Like number 8 or something. What number? 8.
Double B.
Oh, okay. B. Still not gonna hit him with that. That's too much of a spread.
You have a duck caller? You have a little thing that you use?
I do. Goose. It's goose hunting.
Sound like this at all?
Did the chief hang up?
He looks like he's clutching his chest.
He's going down.
He's going what?
And slamming his hand. Yeah. And he's like wondering why did I find my webcam for this? Yeah. Why did I find my webcam for this? Oh my god! Yep. All right, you guys. You want to quickly pay some bills?
Yeah, do it, Pete.
Well, we did the main thing the other night. So tonight, boys, gettinsaltyapparel.com, where you will find the coolest, freshest firefighter gear and apparel, like this hat right here, or that t-shirt that rookies wear, or perhaps a tumbler like this. These are hot sellers at all the shows, by the way. If you guys want to support the show, head on over to gettinsaltyapparel.com. Of course, get you a cool firefighter accessory or apparel item. Also, guys, the super chat is a great way to support the show as well. Shoot us a couple shekels. You guys are our number one sponsors and syndicators, so we appreciate anything. And guys, also super thanks is kind of like the Patreon of YouTube, so check us out there. Any which way you guys can support us, we thoroughly appreciate it. We do a lot to bring this show to you guys, and every little bit helps. So there's that tonight, boys.
Oh, so that's that, and there's nothing you can do about it. I looked at the calendar and I saw Ruffy, thank you, put on your hunting dates. What am I going to do without you for 2 weeks? You're gone for 2 weeks.
Marron.
Who do you want to fill your spot for 2 weeks?
I don't know.
Not that anybody can fill your spot.
No, it's a big shoes. Big shoes.
Dude, they are.
Big shoes, big gloves.
Really?
That's
what they say.
All right. That's all I got. Yeah. So is that all we got? We got to bring in our esteemed guest tonight. I was a little put off tonight. I got to tell you, Pete's unaware of this, but
what happened?
I like to call him Chief Galvin. Pete was like, "Hey, Tom.
No,
Tom.
no,
Hey, Tom.
no,
Hey,
no.
Tom. I'm like, Tom.
First of all,
You
I was
said
in-
Tom
I was in
about
the-
10 times.
I
You're
was
like,
in the
Tom.
fucking trenches with getting grenades thrown at us with all kinds of technical
Tom.
issues. Okay, I could
Yeah,
say
I'm
we
like,
are now
Tom.
on a first name basis because we were in the trenches, man. You don't
Oh,
know.
is that what it is?
Yeah,
All right.
you don't know what it is, but
All right, so, you know-
I'll call him Chief for the rest of the show.
Why don't you do me a favor? Why don't you bring Tom in then? Bring him in, Pete. Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, my very good, close, personal friend, Chief Tom Galvin.
Thanks for coming on, Chief.
Yeah, I'm glad. Thanks for having me on.
Pete
All
did
right.
do good. Pete, I gotta say, you walked him through it, and we found his camera, and it was just, it was a
was
stroke of luck, right? It was a little beam of light from the phone.
It's the phone. Yeah, and it was like I see that his camera's on,
Yeah,
but it's just not. I'm not getting the picture, and I can
Yeah.
hear his audio.
and he kept saying to the chief, "Tom, come into the light. Tom, come into the light."
And as I told Pete, that's the reason why I had drivers, a personal assistant. And, hey, listen, how do I get the camera to work here? You know?
See that?
No.
It's supposed to be stay
Got
away
it
from the
done.
light.
Hey, we
buddy.
got it done. The mission was completed.
No,
It's
we
good to be the
did good.
chief.
We
It's
did
good to
good.
be the chief. You know what
We
I
did
mean?
good. All right, and thank
Good
you
to-
already to
You do
everybody
that. You do that.
in our super chats. Thank you, boys. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
yeah,
John
so
Norman. John Norman giving.
John Norman,
Thank you,
John
Chief
Norman, John Norman.
and
John Norman.
Darren
Never
throwing those Canadian 20s at us, so that's
look
like
at that. It's a beautiful
that's like a
thing.
good that's like $5. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Pete, we got two things before we get into the Chiefs' illustrious career. It's a very long career, very
Yes,
esteemed
sure
career.
is.
I'm very impressed. Do you think, Pete? We got two things. We got the word of
All
the
right,
day.
Chiefs, hang tight, Chiefs, hang tight. First off, ladies and gentlemen, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Good job.
Okay. Love
And
that.
now let's go with the word of the day, really quick, Pete.
Word of the day, guys.
We're
As you know,
by the way, listen, we let Pete pick this word of the day. So if it sucks, just tell him it was him.
see, it's this. I think this is the perfect word of the day to describe Tom, my friend, Tom.
Okay, Tom.
Who's on the
Right.
show. That
Right.
is his name, right, Tom? So I decided to choose this over the other one, which had no point of reference whatsoever. Word of the day today, ladies and gentlemen. Every time you hear it, guys, take a sip. You know how to play the game. One sip every time you hear the horns.
Look at
It's
the Chiefs'
word of the
face.
day. Straight shooter.
After he said, "Yeah, I'm not, don't believe all the hype." That's what he
You know
said.
what, Pete? I'm going to tell you this right now, all right?
What?
The reason that has no point of reference for you is because you weren't on the job, bro. So I'm going to be right now, I'm going to be a straight shooter and let you know that I'm going to be a straight shooter.
shooter.
Oh, hello.
Guy picks
Right
his
out of
own
the
word.
I
and he
just
doesn't
hit
remember.
I just hit the horn 3 seconds ago. You know how people get tight about that. Some guys don't like
All
the
right.
word of the day.
So, Chief, before we dive into your career, there was a couple things you wanted to banter about.
Yeah, just if you don't mind, a little bit of a disclaimer. Not one disclaimer, but one. People kept coming up to me in the last few days. Hey, I hear you going on Getting Salty. Hey, why are you going on Getting Salty? And there were two reasons. One, so Ricky Bruno would stop harassing me with text. I got to get on the show.
Love that guy.
And then after watching recent podcasts with Kill Duff, Mooney, Vinny Dunn twice, John Norman, Jay Jonas, someone had to come on to lower that bar down. maybe not to the Molly the Volley level, but just above a Molly the Volley. And the other disclaimer I wanted to make is, one of the frustrating things about coming on this show is the fear you're going to not acknowledge people. You're not going to mention their name, and they're going to get upset. Eddie Kilduff, it took him an hour to name he named everyone but one guy in 84 and 34, and they were still annoyed with him.
Oh my God.
But during my career, especially at the end, and even after I retired, I always made it a point to go up to people who meant something to me during my career. and especially the guys in training. So if you're a guy in training and you're saying to yourself, hey, I don't remember Galvin coming up and thanking me, maybe you weren't doing as good a job as you thought. So that's one. But the other thing as a tip is never, I've heard John Norman and other people in Jay mention it. Hey, when there's somebody who does something right for your career to help you out, hey, let them know. Just let them, because it's nice to do it and it's nice to hear. The next thing I want to do, I was going to do at the end, but I wanted to do it up front in case we lose some of our audience. And there's 4 groups out there that I think could use our support and financially to an extent, but just our support in general. It was mentioned on the show a couple of podcasts back about the Thomas L. Sassa Fund, and I think we had at least 3 non-line of duty active deaths this year. And during COVID, they lost a lot of their funding, and I think they're starting up their softball tournament. So for the people out there who don't know what the Thomas L. Sassa Fund at the UFA runs, this is for raising money for families who active members who die non-line of duty, to help them out with tuition, home cost, medical cost. So you can go to the UFA webpage, or you just send a check to the UFA office for the El Sassa Fund. I think it's a great organization. The other thing is the Firefighter Family Transport Foundation. What a lot of people don't understand is, that's a private group that funds all this. They're separate from the city. And this year, it's probably costing them $250,000 to run those vans. Not the cost of the vans. It's for tolls, for fuel, insurance. Half that cost is insurance, because we have active and retired firefighters driving these vans. So go to the FDNY Firefighter Transport Foundation. You can do it by PayPal or check. Another group I want to mention, the Fight for Firefighters Foundation, especially for Tim Klein, who died in the line of duty. He was a key player in that organization. It's mostly run out of 257 and 170. They do a great job building ramps for anybody, first responders. So if they have the ability, they'll do it. So you can go to their webpage. And another group, that falls in there, but they're around us all the time, and that's the Pipe Band. And these guys are out there every day. So you could also, there's a donation site on their page to help them with their costs. They're always there for us. Let's be fair there. So El Sassa Fund, Firefighter Transport Foundation, the Fight for Firefighters, and the Pipe Band. And I just wanted to recognize 2 people, and then I want to say something about Steve Garrity. There's 2 groups out there that, one of them is really greatly underappreciated. It's the Family Assistance Unit. And right now, Evelyn Tesasorio is the unit head. She's been in that for 15 plus years. She's been the unit lead. She's been running that group who are always working with our families at a difficult time. There's like 5 civilians, 3 fire members, and 3 EMS. And even then, they don't have enough people to help out. So if you ever go to a funeral and you see they say, who's here from the Family Assistance Unit? Hey, give them an attaboy. They do a great job. And I think they're like an unsung group that's out there. And last thing I want to talk about is the ceremonial unit. When I took over training, there was 5 guys working out of a closet, and Mark Guerra, Joe McNogue, and Joe LaPointe. These guys have done an unbelievable job over the last 15 years. When you go to an event, what people don't realize is they've been there for 4 or 5 hours already, setting it up, making sure it looks right, it's professional, providing dignity to the event. And when you leave, they're still there breaking down and cleaning up the street. So these are 2 groups out there that really deserve acknowledgement for what they do, especially, and also the Pipe Band, because they're always there too. And last, I just want to talk about, we had the Trade Center funerals this week, but Steve Garrity was a big player for me in training. Probably a lot of the things that I get credit for, Steve deserves most of the credit. The Garritys are a FDNY family. His father was on the job. His father was almost killed, seriously injured out of fire. We had to be rescued by, I think Jack Cleow said, Fireman Polera and Lieutenant Hamilton. He was badly injured while he was working in 219. Steve's brothers, Tim is in Rescue 1. Eddie, obviously he's killed on 9/11. And now their kids are, Colin is Eddie's son and Chris is Steve's son. So the whole family has always been in this department. They're a fire department family. Steve, was a fireman in 214, 111. He was Lieutenant Squad 41, 102, Captain 111, Battalion 50, the Fire Academy, to Rescue Battalion. He was the Chief of Rescue Services. So Steve has given tremendously to this department. He is probably the driving force for a lot of stuff that I get credit for. So I just want to take a moment. Let's have a toast for a guy who had a great life, a great career, and has meant a lot to this fire department. So rest in peace, Steve.
Salute.
Rest
Amen.
in peace.
So that's it for that. And
All right.
Thank you guys for joining the show. Tonight we were brought to you. No, I'm kidding. Here we go.
So you mentioned Alsassa. Did you work with him at all? Did you know him?
no, I remember
fun?
when the fund came up, and and
Right.
then hey, just for any active member, especially a young guy, we all think we're invincible. If you are married and you have kids, get insurance, because the guys in the firehouse are going to step up and do whatever they can. Nobody's ever going to replace you, but they're going to do the best they can. You're going to have the Alsassa Fund, and other organizations that could help you, but do your part to protect your family. And so get insurance just to be safe, because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, you have the guy from Queens, he's on vacation and a tree falls on the car. Like how, you can't explain that. It's a terrible tragedy. And so there's not a lot of benefits when you die on line of duty as an actor. So, but it's a great fun, and hopefully everybody participates and donates to them.
He was my little league coach, Tom Alsassa, and his wife was my first grade teacher, so I knew him personally. He was a good guy.
Okay.
And, before we got on the show, that you mentioned Molly DeValle, Hank Mollet, I get a text that says, "Ask the chief who took the tests for him." I said, "I'm not asking the chief that. If you want to ask the chief that, you put it in the chat. I ain't asking him that." So I guess Hanky Molly DeValle, or as we call him, Frank.
Well, some of us call him Frank.
All right, Chief. So let's get into it. Before we get into when you're assigned, how did you get into the job? Did you have family on the job? What makes you want to take
my
the
brother?
test?
My brother was fireman at 231 in the 4-4 Battalion at the time. I was working on Wall Street in Lloyd's Bank International. Just started in their foreign exchange dealing room, and the test. I got married. I was living in my brother's house. He brought in the application, and at the time, to be honest with you, I didn't really have that much interest. But then the more I thought about it, I said, "Hey, maybe I need a change." And I really wasn't happy. I was making a lot of money, and I took a big pay cut to come on the fire department, but I just wasn't happy. He seemed a lot happier than he was at any time being the fireman. So once I got the application, and I just put the effort in, to pass that was the physical with the exam with the physical that the women had the issue with, and just put the effort in, and that's how I came on the job.
Beautiful.
Brother passed away last year of a trade center illness.
I'm sorry.
His son Robert is a covering captain right now, I think, in the 8th Division. So,
okay.
The Galvin name is still out there.
Nice. So October 18th, 78, you get assigned and you go to Proby school, and you come out in November. Wow, it's a little over a month, huh?
Yeah, it was a Proby school back then was 6 weeks. I guess the attitude was, hey, you're going to probably get fire duty. You're going to get more, experience out there. Just you had a few of your prior guests were in that class: Dennis Gordon and Paul Hashhagen, and a couple of future staff chiefs, Billy Seelig and Mike Marone. But actually, the guy that I need to acknowledge the most is the guy Charlie Kawas, because what happened was the Sunday before that class was going to start, I'm in a beer league, football league, and he says to me, "Hey, I'll see you tomorrow at the academy." And I said, "Hey, what are you talking about?" Because he was like, 150 names past me. He said, "Probably school's starting tomorrow." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So I went home, made a few phone calls. Obviously, I called my brother, and I wound up in the class 2 days later with 12 other guys. And if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have been eligible for that lieutenant's test. So it would have been
my God.
Wow.
Changed my whole career. And so a good shout out to Charlie K. West for giving me the heads up. And
I hope you bought him lunch or something at least. Bought him a couple of beers or something.
Yeah. So it's you never know what small little interactions and how they affect your life.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious.
So you get assigned to Engine 234. Do we want to tell that story on how that might have happened? How you got over to
these things just happen. I don't know.
By the way,
it just falls
before we get there, I just need to show, I need to show this.
Look at a face like that.
Whoa, holy mackerel. Who is that, Clint Eastwood? Is that Clint Eastwood?
I was all of 23 years old and
with a cast iron jaw,
and
and you had Jack Johnson and Tom O'Leary over here, ready to give him the old 1-2. Nice, I like it, man.
I got assigned to 234 with Kevin Kelly, Carl Havens, who was the stepbrother of Richie Havens, the musician, and VGSF, Vincent Gerard, Stephen Fowler. And Vinny was a great guy, and unfortunately he died in the line of duty in 1999. And we were, I was a good friend. He was just a great guy to work with, to be around, and whenever we get together and we meet, we always wind up telling Vinny stories, and it goes on for hours and hours. And it's nothing bad about Vinny. It's just all the crazy situations he was in.
Yeah.
He was a step-up guy. And talk about your FDNY families. His dad was, Lieutenant 123. He was one of the original safety chiefs. His brother John was in Rescue 2, and Andrew was in Rescue 4. And an interesting story about John Fowler. His son graduated from Duke, and he wound up graduating from the Navy SEALs. And the number of his class was 343. And,
wow.
And John Fowler, Liam Flaherty, they showed me this. They got some Trade Center steel to recognize the class, that they were 343 and what 343 meant to the fire department. So it's like these all small worlds, but Vinny Fowler, great family, fire department family. And
we were just talking about him the other night. First of all, what was a big guy like that going to an engine? He was a big dude.
Yeah, he was a tall, lanky guy, and looked like an unkempt bed all the time. And but he was a hard worker. On duty, off duty, willing to get his hands dirty, and he would do anything for you. And I'm telling you, we sit around for hours just telling one story after the other. So it's a really big loss. And it's, when you look back, Vinny's been gone now 21 years, and you think about what his family missed, his grandkids, his daughters getting married. But, everybody remembers Vinny, Well,
I think his passing changed how we did stuff too, right?
Oh, he was an unconscious firefighter. That had a lot to do with it. That was the one fire that really turned it around and got everybody to refocus, and we got to do a better job here. And, he was down in the basement. He's a big guy, and trying it. And, we all know in a tight space in this basement, we had a little difficulty getting him out. And unfortunately, but the guys tried. It wasn't that
they definitely did try. And that was a shoebox of a private dwelling, tiny private dwelling.
So it was a terrible loss for the fire department. And only a couple of years ago, the fire academy brought his family out. And where they start the unconscious firefighter training, there's now a plaque dedicated to Vinny and remembrance of Vinny and why they're doing that training. Remind, hey, this is
right.
This is why we do this training. Yeah, we had one of our own. We tried hard, and then we had to figure out a better way. And this is why we're showing you this. That this is a better way. That maybe you could save one of the brothers.
What it did? It really snowballed too, right? So when we first, we had just become the squad, and then we started, doing the webbing, and then we started doing this, and we started doing that. Before you know it, the harness was in the jacket. Guys started figuring out ways to do, drag harnesses and all that stuff instead of the Stokes, and all that, like you said, it just stemmed from one tragedy. So hopefully, it's not that we could learn from something that bad, obviously.
Right. And then we had that class down at the Rock, the firefighter removal, where they took all the past firefighter deaths and they simulated
the Sclafani. We had the
Sclafani. Hardest class by far we ever took, right, Roof? By far.
Yeah, the Kaplunk. They had the water bottles. We had that simulation of like a V collapse, trying to get people out of there. We had the Sclafani one. They had the hole.
Yeah. And, Jay, sort of mentioned, it's hard to perfectly simulate what, that stress of the firefighting, doing it under smoke, heat conditions, pass alarms are going off. People are, and everybody's in a tight area. Everybody's doing their best. And, I think we're much better at it now. We're better equipped for it. We're doing the training. And so that's part of, I guess, Vinny's legacy that, hey, we could have did a better job here. We figured out a better way, and we're going to do it a better way going forward. I was going to save a story for later on, but being that you mentioned the webbing, if you don't mind me, it was actually, and it's when I was the Brooklyn Borough Commander, how webbing got out to the field. How did the job, why did the job issue that? And I was in the Brooklyn Borough Commander, and what happened was Danny Butler was the 15th Division Commander, and he went to visit. They were doing a drill on an unconscious firefighter, and the two guys, I guess there were two SOC guys there, because he said all of a sudden they said, "Hey, here's the way the job's showing here, but hey, we have this webbing," and they were showing him how they were going to use the webbing. So Danny Butler sent a report saying that he was at this drill. And the basic comment was everyone should be issued this webbing, and that was the basis of the report. And that's what a lot of guys do. They just send basics. So I called Danny up. I says, Danny, you can't send. All you're doing is giving the issue to somebody else. What you want to do is put a report together where it's a yes or no. Just give them all the information. So what we need to do is, because I didn't know about the webbing at the time. I said, well, how much webbing do we give the guy? What's the size of it? What's it
right.
Supposed to give to the members? Where are they going to carry it? And and he said, well, the SOC guys carried it behind their knee pad. Remember we had the buttons.
Mm-hmm.
I said, we can't say that as the department, because it's a safety issue. So where are they going to carry it? And then come up with a bulletin. So what happens next is Danny gets off the phone. Eddie Kilduff walks into my office. Eddie was the deputy borough commander. He says, "Oh, how did that phone call go with Danny Butler?" I said, "How did you know that?" I talked to Danny Butler. He goes, "Well, Danny Butler called me and said, why didn't Tom just tell me to go fuck myself?" Eddie says, Danny, what did Tom tell you? And after Danny told me, he says, Eddie told him, Danny, Tom's right. You want to give them here's the answer. Here's what we can solve this. And to his credit, and I called him back. I said, hey, you can call. I'm trying to think of the SOC guy who's the equipment guy. I can't remember his name. He probably has it, and probably something in SOC already has it. We just have to package it. Danny packaged it, and within 90 days, that webbing was issued to everyone in the field.
Oh shit!
Wow.
So by him taking that effort. And that's what, so there's a lot of people come to you when you're on the staff. Hey, we need to do this. We need, give me the information. There's a lot of empty cubicles in headquarters. There were people at one time. There's not a lot of people there. So if you just give them something, it just goes onto another pile.
Right.
Give them something. It's a yes or no answer that they can make a decision. And so Danny should get credit, for doing their work, and it paid off because that webbing went out to everybody in the field. So we'll get off the webbing. So I get to 234 if you want to keep talking there. And
are you going to reveal how we got to 234? We're not going to reveal that.
Be honest with you, you know where I was looking to go? I was looking to go to 227, and nobody went to 227, and I wound up at 234. I didn't know that. I knew a little bit about 227. I didn't know that much about 234, and but it was a home run. If it would have been either place, and when I got to 234. 4 great officers. Jerry Tester was the captain, Freddie Schlewick, Pete Barry, and there was this guy, Paul Christensen. And that's where one of my regrets at the end, because what Paul Christensen did for me is that, right now you got the Proby notebook and reading assignments. Well, I was in his groups. He gave me, here's all these things I want you to read. And after you read it, here's the books. You read it, you come to me, and I'm going to ask you questions. And so he got me into that. He says, if you're not cleaning the rig, you're not cleaning the firehouse, you're not doing the meals, I want you reading this stuff. So it just got me into, looking at the material, not to be an officer, it was to be a better firefighter. So he sort of got me on that role, and plus it was, stay off the second floor. I don't know what was going on up there, but
allegedly stuff could have been going up there. You don't know.
So, a lot of great senior guys. I'm just going to mention a few because, Willie Venezia and Nick Shirali, Nick's son is a deputy in the 1st Division. Just, solid guys, just wanted you to be, made sure you worked as a team, that everybody did their job. The expectations there, once that door opened up, you're expected to perform. So it was just a great house for laying out the foundation, of my career. And it's just a great place to work.
You riding the back steps when you got there?
Yeah, I know you're talking about it. And for that first, I think it was about for the first year and a half they allowed us to do it. And you want to something. After a while, when it's 3:00 in the morning and you're just jumping, and you have no way to way the rig's turning. Sometimes you're like, whoa, what the hell? You're holding on for dear life. It was a lot of fun, but you know what? some things can happen at times, and then it's not so much fun. So,
Right.
it was a whole part of the excitement. I think what Jay was talking about, if the mask was thrown in the back of the hose bed, or but then there probably had to be some incident. I just can't recall, and that was it. Everybody off the back step.
Yeah. Well, you got to ask him, or should I ask him?
When did you catch your first job, Chief?
Hey.
Oh, it's probably it was probably I think about the second tour, and then there was a fire duty. It's the back end of the war years. We were probably doing 4,500, 5,000 runs, and probably the job I remember Nick. It was probably this one where working with Jerry Testa said, Tom, you got, because they always gave the Probies the nozzle. They gave them when my groups, and they put the senior guy behind you, and they said, listen, if he tells you he's going to take the nozzle, just give him the nozzle, because that this is
it's good.
Well, get pay grade right now. But I just being at fires where guys like Nick, you got it, just keep, and you just go, because they're telling they just come. You got that guy in your ear just saying go. You're And I remember later on, it was a guy, Richie Hogan. I was just back when he got me, and he mentioned that how he just heard my voice, and that's what I learned from Jay. Just give the guy the confidence. Hey, keep going. You got it. You got it. You got it. Keep going. You got it.
That is incredible. It really is incredible.
And because you have to trust in them. You trust them. They're not going to let you get hurt or killed. And it was just a great bunch of guys in the engine company. From my time there, and I wish it was there longer, but didn't test get him along. And I just there was just a lot of guys that the officers and the firemen in 234, just a great group of guys.
Now, 81, you're eligible to take the test. You took it in 81?
Yeah, that was the 81 test. Well, like I said, what happened was the test was supposed to be in the spring of that year, so I wasn't eligible for that test. And back then the 24s weren't. I was working straight tours, and fire tech, and that's when fire tech had just started up. And where I lived, they were doing a class. So I was going just to, I have nothing else to do. I wasn't working the side, and I have my kids, so I wasn't working the side job at the time. And nobody had a problem. Like they heard I was at fire tech. And then and all of a sudden the test gets changed to October 31st. I turned first grade on October 18th because I got into that class. Shit. And so I was first grade 13 days. And I remember
timing, baby.
In the kitchen, they were probably breaking my chops. Hey, you got to learn how to be a fireman. What do you want? And you didn't have a problem. 3 weeks ago, I was going to fire tech, and everybody said, and this one night, they were probably riding me a little bit hard, and I would say, okay, you're right. You're probably right. I should take, And what happened next was, it just shows you like these interactions you have with people. About an hour later, I was going upstairs to the second floor, and you got to pass the 3-8 office, and there was a chief, Gene Doctor, and he calls me into the office. He says, "Hey, close the door." He says, "Listen, this is an opportunity. You take advantage of the opportunities." A lot of these guys are frustrated because some of these guys had 10 because of the layoffs and stuff.
Yeah.
They had 10, 12 years, and this is their first test. And, and now you're always competing with, so, and it's hard once you have that time on the job to get, get into that study mode. So he said, you just do it. He says, you can have no seniority anyway. So just, give it a shot. And then the next thing he did that was really amazing. About a week later, he sees me. He said, "Come up to your office. I got something for you." He gave me 2 crates of his books. Wow. And he was like a super sharp guy. He was on the staff later on, very sharp guy.
You had all the highlights in there?
No, but that's what I was going to say. Oh. You look at us, we got yellow markers, pink markers. He didn't have a mark in his books, but know what he had? He had all the questions from like the previous 12 tests. He didn't have the exact question. He would say, this section, lieutenant's test, 1967, captain's test. So you could see almost how they took questions, or how you could see when you're looking at the section. Oh, that's perfect for a question already to be made up. So just
smart guy, man, really smart guy.
Oh, he was super sharp. I mean, he was very. I mean, he just an excellent, good fire officer, excellent, and he was just excellent. And like I said, Paul Christensen, he just, here's your reading list. You got to do this. And then the test comes up, and I sort of did well, So it's.
Did you transfer to the truck before that, or
1982, right after that, right?
It was right after, so now I took the test and, on that test, it just, it sounds crazy, but what I was banking on was they used to have all these management questions, and usually that's what guys had problems with, And back then, listen, you study for the test they give you, like the bibliography. And if you go back then, it was a wider bibliography. They took out the laws because it's reference material. Then they took out all the, like you had to read Peter Drucker, Strauss and Sales were on the bibliography. And I remember going through the test, and I'm just telling you, I knew I was on the test. You just know, everything. And I stopped around midway and I said, I got to look for how many management questions. And you go back and it was none. I think it was one. And I started talking to myself, like, you got to be effing kidding me here. And even the proctor came down and said, hey, what's going on? I said, no, I'm just talking to myself. And then I actually went through the test pretty quick and wound up back in the firehouse. And this guy, Kenny Eisler, was the lieutenant, says, hey, didn't you take the lieutenant? Says, it was a waste of time. My seniority, everyone's going to pass this test. It was an easy test. And I remember guys coming back saying, "Oh, you must ace the test." And I said, "I didn't want to." I wanted to ace the test, but I didn't want everybody else to ace the test. But it worked out. Like all tests, nobody ever got as high as a mark that they thought they had. And I think I did really well. And I got a 72. And then with some of the changes, but now, to be honest with you, I was like, okay. Now you put yourself in the situation. You better figure this out because, something. This is not a game. And it's. Right. So I went over to the truck, and once again, excellent officers. Jerry Condon was the captain. He was a lieutenant there and a captain there. He was a fireman in 108. Just loved talking about fires, going to fires. You had officers like Bob Lowe, Billy Blach rather, and John Carroll, and they took me under their wing, when we run on runs, they say, okay, Tom, what are you going to, hey, what would you have done here? If this happened, why would you have done it? And they say, okay, what are we going to tell the chief? Okay, here's the handy talkie, tell it to the chief. So they pretty much kept me on the inside team most of the time. And it was just to, hey, help me out. And, because, hey, you're going to wait one day and now you're going to be that boss. So I owe them a lot credit, once again, you had senior guys like, can't name them all, but you had Billy Ostrander, who was like a legend in the house. Dick Webb, he had mentioned him a few times, the Brown Bomber, and George Bernard, just solid guys, experienced guys. And just if I could, when Frank Ancona and Molly Navali was on, Frank was had a better memory than Molly Navali. So just to get it straightened out, what black guys owned what? Dave Miller owned Get It and Get. Dave Miller and Bob Sanders owned the glass and window business. The lumber yard was Willie Yard and J.C. Valentine, and Dick Webb was the highway cop, teacher on the side, and he was the Brown Bomber. So Dick Webb didn't own the lumber yard. Dick Webb
get it straight, Molly.
So I saw Hank at the FDNY Foundation dinner at the Fire Academy, and I was breaking his chops that night. So I guess it's hard for middle class white guys to remember who the black guys are. So it's but
dare you, Hank.
I remember riding around with a guy like Bob Sanders, and and I remember he'd be riding around with him. He'd go, see that building over there? What would you do? And if you gave the wrong answer, he goes, you're a silly kid. You're going to get yourself killed one day, But then he tell you what to do. So these guys always, it was always making you a better firefighter. In the house, it was just, all these alleged stories that happened in the firehouse that you could laugh about. But it was a great training ground, working with great people that they laid the foundation. And one of the things I remember is, hey, don't forget where you came from. It's don't forget who you are and where you came from and how you want to treat people. So I owe a debt of gratitude to that whole group there that sort of got the ball rolling.
Let me throw something out to you, Chief, because I was thinking about this. I was talking to a couple of guys and thinking about too, like whenever you stop at a firehouse, if you got to take a piss or something, you walk in, you observe what's going on, and now listening to you saying, guys just like to talk about fire duty and go out on the rig and stuff. And I was talking to these guys, and they were like, the phones and social media. They say that oftentimes they're sitting in the rig and nobody's even talking to each other. They're all on their phone, or they're sitting in the firehouse and they're all on their phone. Do you think back then, because there was no distractions, the guys would focus more on fires and what was going on at the time?
It is. It's I don't want this to come out as a knock a new guy, but that's just it. Everybody's on that. I mean, I've talked to guys that a guy was a chief who's sitting in the fire, the kitchen table. There were two guys sitting, and they both started laughing at the same time. And he said to them, "Are you guys texting with each other?" And they were texting, and he's saying, "Yeah, like are you
right in the same goddamn room."
And you know what it is? The whole cell phones. I mean, I wish we had the ability to say, "Hey, when you're on duty, there's no cell phones." Because they've caused us problems in the past, where we had a guy dying in line of duty, and the wrong name went out. And people were going to name the wrong guy because they were getting ahead of the job. And I was at the fire academy one day where a guy got hurt, and I went over to the field. Hey, what's going on? I'm getting him treated, and I turn around. There's a guy calling the guy's wife. I'm saying, what are you doing? The guy's not. He wasn't going to die. He was, but we had to get him to the hospital. And you're going to start a panic, do you want her flying through the streets? So it is an issue with I guess listen, this is, if you go back to what they tell you, if you go back to like anybody from the mid 90s on this, they're the internet, they're the Apple, they're the iPhone. How do you stop that? I don't know. But I think at some point, as the Chief, you got to say, hey, we're drilling, get rid of the phone, or you got, I don't know the answer to it. It's just,
it's pretty simple, Chief. Actually, on our jobs, when I go to work, I work in a technological industry with phones, with the business, and everyone's it's like a spoken thing, lately in the last 2 years, everyone's like, while we're on set, there's no phones. You can check your phone if you got to go to the bathroom or something like that, but we're on set now. Stay off your phones. And if you're staring down at your phone, someone's going to see that and you might not get hired again. So not that you can fire firefighters, and I don't want to over a phone, but what I'm saying is there should be that culture built into the firehouse if that's what we're looking for.
It's easy to say, and I would say, well, Pete, that's because you haven't been around firemen all the time. All right, so listen, I agree with you, because we on the staff we were talking about it, and it's how do you control it, and it's it's like herding cats, and some guys get it, some guys don't, but I think it's. At some point, hey, no, we're in the kitchen. It's like I said, I don't know how to comment on it because I've been out. I don't know what the issue really is, but at some point in time, you got to say, hey guys, no phones here. And
listen, when it's your time in the firehouse,
and
that's your time. You could do whatever you want. You want to go to the gym, you go to the gym. But when it's time to drill, or you're on the rig, even on the rig, you should never be. Should be looking around. You should be looking at buildings. You should be doing all of that stuff.
The whole idea, the camaraderie, the kitchen,
right?
Stories, and the same thing. You're out. You don't want to be distracted. There's a lot of stuff out there you got to be looking at. So.
But getting back to what you said, what really pisses me off, and even on our fan page or on the internet as a whole, on Facebook or any of that shit, the whole idea to be first is fucking so disgusting, right? That they don't even know the facts, and they just have to throw something out. It's on everything. It's on Twitter. It's on all of that nonsense. It's a cancer. I say it all the time. That part, like the internet and all that stuff. Again, I don't want to get into it. And I don't want to talk about it, but the guys really have to concentrate on not doing that, right? That's something like you want to get the word out to people, like Chief Garrity passing away, right? Guys, had called me. Right. I don't want to be the first guy. I don't know if it's true. I'm getting that secondhand information. I have no idea, right? I'm not going to be throwing that out until it's confirmed by the job or whatever, right? So you just have to control yourself.
Well, guys posting videos, they
pictures of shit.
So, but I don't know how to solve that. So I
all right. Moving on. Just wanted to get your take on it.
Figure we get Petey riled up a little bit.
I couldn't figure out how to get the camera on this damn computer. You think I was?
We did it together.
Pete, you took him down the hallway. Pete,
he's all right. That Pete,
you were behind him on the line, telling him how to get that camera set up like it was nobody. You're a good senior man.
You know
one
why?
more room. That's what he said. One more room, Pete.
Because the chief, had rubbed off on me, and now I'm a straight shooter.
Oh, finally, holy America.
Have a drink, ladies and
Have a
gentlemen.
drink. Would you stop fooling around?
See, Ruffy, that's going to be the new policy. Every once in a while, you got to throw something controversial so Pete wakes up. Like, what? What's on my
Ah,
cell
yeah.
phones? What? Joe
Slide on a
Biden?
9
What?
or some shit.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
So,
Look here, Jack.
Come on.
oh,
Yeah.
we August 20th, 84, we get promoted. Any fire stories you want to talk about 123 before we move on? Or?
It's, hey,
The average.
Every
fire duty, bro.
No, nothing really. It's.
You guys are too far away. You didn't run into a poster over there, right? No.
What was that?
You were too far away from Sheffield. You didn't run into a poster, right? No.
Look
No,
at
we
his face.
didn't respond with that. Right, so.
I'm trying to reel him in. I'm trying to get him
Yeah.
in. I'm trying to
He's
get him
gonna
on.
wait. When he gets to the 4-4, I'm sure.
Oh, there we go. We'll get a smile. So, August 20th, 84, you're promoted to lieutenant, assigned to Battalion 16, Division 5.
I don't know how that happened either. So.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to discuss some experiences with the units and
Oh,
members?
so obviously, listen, I got promoted really quick. Less than 6 years on the job, and I remember it was like the second night I'm working a 91 engine. We went out for the meal, come back, and I'm in the street, get back in the rig, and finally comes up to me, goes, "Hey, Lou, how old are you?" And I go, "I'm 29." He goes, "You know what? There's nobody on this rig over 30 years of age tonight." And it was just an unusual night. I said, "Well,
Wow.
I guess we're the kid engine. I guess we're
Young
gonna
guns, baby.
And so you always had guys breaking chops when you're, hey Lou, you got the junior guys got the can, you got the can, Lou. So it's the fifth division, the old fifth division, everything above 125th Street in Manhattan. It mirrored the 15th division. The buildings were a little bit bigger in the fifth division, but great companies. A lot of great officers took me under their wing. Guys like Herbie O'Brien and 35 engine, guys like Jack Corcoran and Joe Curry in 26, and guys like Mike, Keenan and 37 engine, Jack Wynn and 40 truck. When you work in these houses, they were, they just always talk to you, and whenever you ask them questions, they had it. The companies were great, I caught a lot of work up there. Nothing exciting or any particular fire, but you're just always working with good companies. I remember one night in the beginning, I was working in 80 engine and the 8 because the 5th Division was in quarters, and Matty Murtaugh, who started Fire Tech with Chief Lockman up in the 13th Battalion, Murtaugh was doing the overtime printouts, and he says, "Oh, there's something wrong on this printout. They say this guy's only got like 5.5 years on the job." And the 8 says, "Chief, he's down in the kitchen." And go get him. So I come upstairs and he says, "You really only?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I got to make you the poster boy for Fire Tech." And I said, "Chief, if you don't mind, I don't think I need that. I got enough stuff I got to deal with." So let me just muddle through here. But I was crossing paths with just a lot of good people that impact your career. And then I was there for a couple of years. I mean, it was it was hard to get spots, because you needed time. And just as when I was, the spot was, where you had a chance for a spot, the captain's test was already in. And I had a particular battalion commander, hey Tom, I want you to put in, I want you for this company. And I said, "Listen, Chief, I think I'm going to get promoted in 4 or 5 months. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right to take a company if I'm only going to be there for a cup of coffee." And I was thinking of going down to the 3rd Division just to see if I'd want to go down there as a captain. And he understood it. And then about 2 hours later, I got a call from the division commander. And he says, "Hey, Tom, I want you to put in for this company." And I gave him the whole thing. And before I could finish, he hung up on me. He hung up the phone. And I sat there saying, "Well, I think I better work on that detail of the 3rd Division because I'm going to be SA for the next several months." So I had a great time up there, met a lot of great people, and that impacted my career. And just all good companies.
Chief, did you study the whole time? Did you ever stop studying, or you just were in the
Well,
books?
what happened? It was it just hit. It was like these tests after 9/11. They just at that time they would just come right on time. I hit
Perfect
it
time. Yeah.
And so I was going to kept Fire Tech, and actually what I was doing, I would study in the Firehouse. I said I'm not going to study at home, and I'll do a little at home. And I used to do it after midnight or get up, make sure the last 3 hours before the tour ended, and use the city time to study. And I just happened, I hit that test. I did it well. I had well on that test, so I knew I was going to get promoted. And like the company that they wanted me to take was it was an engine company, a really named engine company. But Like what? Why go there? You're going to go there for 4 months and say,
yeah.
hey, I got promoted as so and so, and so I had a great time up there. Enhanced my career, and then I made that decision. Let me go see what the third. Let's see what Midtown is like. Do I want to stay down here? And I wound up calling, got hold of Vinny Dunn, and somehow I got to the third division, and I was a truck, So and I lucked out there because I think the spot I went into was Tommy Herring, who went over to hazmat at the time, and so I just called up at the right time, and the
24 is near. It's right by Madison Square Garden, right? Is that 24?
24 truck is I was in 4 truck. This is when I was a lieutenant, covering lieutenant.
Okay.
So I was in 4 truck. I was there for about 3 months. I was going on vacation. I spoke to the battalion commander. So listen, I'm interested in coming back. He said, no, but you're going to come back. I already told the division. And 2 weeks later, I got the call. Hey, you're getting promoted. So
how much time did you have at that time?
9.
Excuse me.
9 years. Nice.
9 years.
About 9 years. And like the first, almost like every 3 years. And where I lucked out now was because I took that decant. I wanted to stay down there because, like everybody always has a picture of what's Midtown like and all that. And, there's a Brooklyn Bronx feel to it because that's where you get most of the officers from. The chiefs come out of these places. And so when I got promoted, what happened was John Casey, who later on I worked with in 3rd Division and staff, he gets promoted. And Bob Burns was a lieutenant at the time. He got promoted to captain. I heard all about Bob Burns back then, and I met Bob. And then later on, I was training. He took over flips and really changed that program around for me. And so I was in UFO in a 24 truck. And another, I just stepped into, because at that time, the 3rd Division was in headquarters at the time. And so you had Vinny Dunn, and you could walk in there and talk to him about his book, Collapse. You could pick his brain. And that's something I would tell people out there. You never, hey, talk to the officers, talk to the chiefs. They got a lot of information that they give you. Ask them questions, what they picked up on you, and they're going to make you a better officer. And during that time, I was in 24 truck. If you took an 18-month snapshot, like a 15 months, let's say I was there for 15 months. That might have been one of the busiest times that I had, because this was just before the 42nd Street redevelopment. You had fires all over the place. You had these welfare hotels that were just the Martinique and all that. There was jobs in there all the time. And this is so there was somehow a lot of buildings were going up in flames that had to be demolished now. And they put the marshals. The marshals actually put a trailer on 42nd Street to get in on the box right away. And Vinny Dunn told me, I think that the 1 year, whatever, January to December, in that 15 months, the 3rd Division did more multiple alarms in that period than any other time. So I caught it at the right time. There was a lot of work, and I remember like that Brooklyn Bronx feel. Like if you in 24-1, Frank Congesta from 120 was in 24 truck. There were 3 guys from 236 that were engine and truck bosses. Bobby Turner was in 1 engine. Eddie Deary was the captain. I forget where he was, from Brooklyn. And even other surrounding units like 2 truck. You had Roger Beeler from 120. And all these houses just had, and the chiefs, like in the 8th Battalion, you had guys like Bobby Cantillo from captain of 26 truck. Tough Tony Adamo from 176. Then you had guys like Jimmy Wendling. And then you wind up with guys like Jack Mooney and Tommy Jensen. They came. And in the 9th Battalion, you had Joe Grasso. I remember him as Smokey Joe when he was lieutenant in 227, but now he became the high-rise drifter. Just a great boss. Teddy Rolfing, the captain of 280. Pat Foley, the captain of 33 truck. Jack McDermott was, I think,
oh my God.
Truck. So, and then Joe Nardone, and then like you get the Charlie Williamses, the George Mayers, like these guys that just keep flowing into these battalions, and they just create that atmosphere. And I'll tell you one thing about the 1st and 3rd Division units. They're great at forceful entry. Like, in the 15th Division, we're muggling the doors, just, brute force. And I remember when I got to 24, Frank Congesta said, where do you see these guys take doors? And I sort of knew it from just being in 4 truck. Because early in the 70s, the job used to send firefighters from 4 truck and other trucks around to teach the through the lock method. Anybody, we were like, yeah, fuck that through the lock method.
Finessing it, right? They were finessing
them do it and how quickly they
yeah.
did it. It was amazing. And, so, I really lucked out working in 24. Really great guys. The only guy, I mentioned in 24, Steve Belson was like the senior guy. He was Oriole Palmer's aide on 9/11. He got killed. Really good officers. And I just lucked out. And the reason why I lucked out for the 15 months was somebody wanted to come back as, I know who it is, but I don't want to mention their name. Wanted to come back as the captain of the 24 truck, and the division wanted no part of it. And so they used Eddie Deary, the captain of the engine, who was a senior captain, to put his paper in. So they sort of had these two guys blocking each other. And so I didn't care. I'm here. Like another order came, and then another order came, and then there was sort of like they got the word that the other guy got the message, and he pulled his paper. So one of the chiefs comes up to me and says, Tom, the transfer order, it's going to be down in 2 weeks. If you want to call somebody and you want to stay in 24 truck, we're going to have no problem. And I said, Chief, Eddie Deary has had his paper in. He's the senior captain in the division. You want me to screw the senior captain and then I got to work with him? I said, no, I can't. So then the order comes down, and back then there's no cell phones. I had no paper in, so I didn't care. Friday, I come in for my night tour, and the doorway is like on the opposite side of the house watch. And the house watch, hey, Cap, congratulations. And you always want to make sure the men don't know that you don't know what they're talking about. Hey, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. I go upstairs. Bobby comes in the office. And I go, Bobby, I said, what are they congratulating me for? He goes, because you're the new captain. I said, how did I get 24 truck? He says, no, Eddie Deary is the captain of 24. You're now the captain of one engine. And I'm like, I don't now I'm thinking, okay, he's yanking my chain. I want to see the order. Show me the order. He shows me the order, and I'm going. And I had it set now. Okay, I'm going covering. I'll cover for a while. So I go in to see Vinny Dunn. Vinny Dunn is working. I said, Chief, how did I become the captain of one engine? I didn't have a paper. And he said, Tom, a lot of guys that UFO spots, they didn't get it. The next thing you know, they leave the division. I didn't want you to leave the division. Stay as the captain, and if anything opens up that you want to put your paper in for, we'll have no problem. And so I became the captain of one engine. And talking about fire duty. So now, we were at part of the fire, and there were times we're standing fast, and they're calling for a relief truck and I would grab the chief. I said, Chief, I got time. We'll just grab books. So we were pulling ceilings and doing stuff. The guys liked it. But to be honest with you, what happens now is after midnight, you beep, boop, you hop up and you're ready to go. Truck only, and then it's like, beep, boop, truck only. And then one night I remember saying, the thing went off and I said, I asked for the truck. And I said, I need a change. This is not really what I wanted. The guys were good. It just really wasn't where I mentally was at. And the next thing I know, one of the deputies came up to me and said, hey, Howie Kennedy is going over to Hazmat. Would you be interested in going to Fort Truck? And I said, I'll do it. And one of the things he said to me was, the chief's test is coming up. If you go over there, there's no studying over there. And I said, no, I was there for 3 months. I get it. He says, just be aware that, you have an opportunity, you could study. I said, no, I want to go over to Fort Truck. And so that's how I went over to Fort Truck. And
that's the place, right? I mean, that's in the hub right
there. What people don't say about Fort Truck is, because you picture, it's a Midtown high-rise truck. Yeah, that's east. Everything west is tenements, brownstone, SROs, the river, everything. The only thing that Fort Truck doesn't have a response to is row frames and Queen Anne's. Everything else they got. And they got stuff that people order. That everything is, if you read John Norman's book, and he talks about, these things turn into, clusterfucks because it's just the way the buildings are built, and we don't do a lot of work in them, and then the fire's all over the place. So Fort Truck is was a really great place to work in. Just to stay on Fort Truck, I now become the captain of Fort Truck, and look at the bosses I had. I had Terry Hatton, Jerry Tracy, and John Bell Navis. And I had about like 7 or 8 probies come in at one time, but I had good senior guys like Keith Curran, Dennis Munley, Mike Riley, Jimmy Cooney, and then I got 3 guys from outside the house. John Moran came over from 123 because he was going to law school before. He was in Fort Truck for a while before he went to Rescue 1. I think Bobby McLaughlin, I think he was from 102, and I think Paul Jarrett came down. So we just, with the senior guys I had, with all the Probies, I mean, Terry was just drill. They would drill. They would 24/7, and he's a tough boss. And Jerry Tracy, as you had on the show, he can make some caustic comments at times. And I used to come in, me and John Bell Davis, and I would relieve John. I'd walk in the office, and he'd just start laughing. I'd say, "Okay, what did they do now?" And most of the time, I agreed with them. I may not have done it the way they did it, and but. Like they just had, but notice they love, Terry. We just got, we were getting a new rig. Terry says, "Hey, Cap." He always called me Cap. Like you never go. He says, "Cap, do you mind if I go over to shops and set the rig up the way I want?" I said, "Terry, go right ahead." And so this way we didn't have to play with it when it came back. And with all those young guys, they just love to drill, and we had a lot of renovation. We were allowed to go into these buildings, tear them apart, and it was just a really, it was just a great area to work in. The guys were just fantastic, and it was just, give you Chevy Tracy. He had a problem with a guy in the Firehouse, and the sort of punishment he gave to the guy, he really by the book couldn't have done. He shouldn't have, it's not in the books. And I had the union delegate come into me, who I knew as a friend. I knew him since I was a kid. He goes, Cap, it says he can't do that, like this punishment, and I'm saying you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I understand, but listen, I agree why Jerry is upset. I'm upset what the guy did, but I said, okay, but if you're telling me you want me to run this company by the books, I would run the company by the books. And just remember, I don't think there's a guy in the house that knows the books as well as I do. So when I start running this company by the books, when they come in to complain, I'm going to say, go see a union delegate, because this, and he says, "Well, Cap, let's not go too far."
Back it up.
I was the
Wait a minute.
Wrap it up.
So it's, but they were excellent. Jerry was to have him and Terry with and you got 8 Probies, and they just helped set the tone. And John Bell Neighbors brought the levity and the pragmatic guy that he was, and that he is, not that it was, but and Terry, Terry was just fantastic.
Chief, what was it like being? I mean, if I had a pick of one Firehouse that probably gets the most visits and like is in the hub of everything, what was it like with that? Like with the people there? Like,
well, part of it is you feed off that too. I mean, when I was there, that one of the guys had this big Newfoundland dog, the Bear. And they used to put Bear in the front of the Firehouse at 4:00, and
oh my God,
that was the babe magnet, And, oh, look at that cute dog! In fact, I think 2 Truck picked up on it, and what 2 Truck did, they made a cutout of the dog, and they, when you're working in poor areas, because it's depressing for the people to live there, that they have to live in. And when you're in Midtown, it's a nice side to it, and. But where the challenge in Fort Truck is, you can go on a dozen runs, and the roof and OVM position could be changed on every one of them. So it takes longer to become a better firefighter in Midtown because of the varied response area, and when you get fires, they're challenging. That they're really pushing.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And
when you have, but when you have those bosses that I was talking about, like the Joe Grassos and these guys, Joe Nardone, they just make you just feel comfortable being under their leadership. So it was a great time. And one thing I would say is, you had somebody on the show. We were talking about you always want to drill prepared for the situations. And before I got there, this is not something I did. After 8:00 at night, if we went to a commercial building, we always operated the elevators just to get it, because you can't do it during the day. And just so everybody has it, we're going to get recall, check, light up the shaft, go up, check every 5 floors. During the time I was the captain of Fort Truck, I know at least happened twice. Where after we got off, the guy running the elevator got pulled to the 5th floor, and he knew exactly where to go to get off the floor. So, that's why wherever you work, you want to drill all the time. Think of the situations that are going to cause you the biggest problems, and just go out there and drill it. That's what's the fun time of the job, And there's a big challenge with Fort Truck with the administrative district. You're doing theater inspection. I had no idea what, and and it's a big thing, and it's a lot of work into it, and you're taking on a lot of responsibility, and when you go to Fort Truck, you're going to do the administrative work. I mean, they actually had a separate phone line that, people with like the businesses or anybody, when you're picking up that phone, there was, hey, we got a problem, I got to solve, so great place to work out, great guys. And I wish I would have stayed there longer, but the test comes up and
How long did you have Hatton for before you went back to rescue?
Terry was still there when I left, so Terry was there for about 2 years, and just a great guy.
What's it like consistently stuck in traffic? Like, what is it like? When you're trying to respond to a box and you can't
sort of get used to it, and then it's like what is responding like I don't know what it's like now. I can only tell you like we knew like there's certain streets that if we can get on, we don't need like the people at they always had people at these intersections. Like they see us and they would clear you through fast.
Right.
Just what certain streets to go to. And I'll be honest with you, it was one night. I mean, it had to be the tree lining, and I'm going to a Class E, and I tell a dispatcher,
I'm
hey,
not
listen,
going.
It's going to take it 20. It's going to, and then she's making it. I said, well, there's about 150,000 people in the street here. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
So, it's frustrating because it's you go out and it can take you 20 minutes sometimes to get back. And,
right. Even come around.
It's not even getting there so much. Like when I worked at 60's truck, it's coming back to the fire. It sometimes take you a half hour to get back to the firehouse.
Yeah, and
especially around Christmas time.
It's just and it's nice. Like like the days we had BI. It's okay. We got BI. We take a lunch. We're going to the park. We'll go hang out in Central Park having lunch. And it's so there's a nice things to it too. As you're trolling around the neighborhood. So but back then, it was that
you're on the prowl.
You had the titty bars and all the porn things. This is just before Giuliani. This is like when Curtis Lewa, and that's when they started. We used to tell people, the tourists, like, if they were staying in Firehouse at 11 o'clock, we used to say, listen, it's time to get back in the hotel. And they look at it. They say, no, you got to get back in the hotel.
Yeah. This is
not
after 11 o'clock, Disney World anymore.
The police detail left, and then all the chicken hawks and all these people came out. And like they were around the corner. There was a building where stewardesses were, that's at their apartment. They used to knock on our door. Hey, could you just watch this while we go, just to go 150 feet down a block, 200 feet down a block.
Shit.
And then sooner or later, you come down the kitchen and there's 6 stewardesses hanging out with the firemen.
So of course.
Never heard of it.
That's the perks. That's the
fireman, Anyway, we can move on.
Allegedly.
All right.
Allegedly.
I'm gonna pass that. I want to thank you for being such a straight shooter, Chief.
Hey!
Look at him.
Straight as the ball.
Earlier, Kevin, you said about being the hardest working guy. And listen, there's other people, I'm going to give a shout out to South Casano. Because not only did he work harder than me, he had to deal with me. So he gets a little credit for that. And, I hope people now, as they look back on the Casano time when he was operations and chief of department, I think maybe people are looking to have those days back if they could. So shout out to South Casano. He helped me out during my career when he was in the 15th division when I was in the 4-4, and just a solid guy. And he worked really, really, really hard.
Maybe you want to reward him by telling him to come on the show. I don't know. Maybe
it would be a cold day in hell for Sal. Sal plays everything close to the vest. You don't know what's going on in Sal's brain.
Yeah.
And after a while, you can figure out how to decipher him a little bit. But don't play cards. You can play cards with me because my heart's on my sleeve. Don't play cards with South Casano.
Take all your cash.
I'm gonna tell you, me and him banged heads a lot of times just because of personality, my personality, not his. And more often than not, he was right. And when I look back, and I even told him, I said, you were right on that one. That's so. I shout out to South Casano. But I doubt you're never going to get him on this show. I'm confident in saying that.
How about Kilduff? Oh, we had him already.
Ed. I like Pete calls him Ed.
Pete does call him Ed. Right, Tom.
Look at Pete's face.
What?
We're going to move on to leaving Fort Truck.
Yes, we're going to promote it to BC in April of '91.
So I go to 3/8 Battalion to my old home grounds, and that's my mom and dad. They're passed away now. I was I well of 12 years I think on the job when I had that, or 13 years on the job when I got promoted.
Wow.
And went back to the 3A Battalion. And if I look back on my career, if I really change, one of the things I could change is I probably should have went up to the Bronx at that time. I really shortchanged myself by not going up there. And as Joe Callan said, Galvin, you didn't work enough tours in the Bronx to earn a T-shirt. So I think because I went back. You figure it's always when I go back to you're comfortable with. You figure the fire duty's still there, but it was still great for me. But I think that would have been the change. And when I was bouncing around, I get a call from Richie Fanning, who's another guy who was a mentor of mine. Great union guy, great officer. He wasn't a fair weather friend. When things were not going right for you, you could almost guarantee that he was going to give you a call and see how you were doing and talk to you and never tell you what to do. He'd say, just, hey, think about this, and we've got to make that final decision. And I think from a chief on, the two guys that were my biggest mentors, Richie Fanning and Jay Jonas mentioned Nick Visconti. When I was talking to guys in the flips course, I would alternate and say, you always want to pick out the people that you want to be like, whether it's like when you're a firefighter, hey, I wanted to be like Billy. I was never going to be Billy Ostrander, but that's what you strove for. When I was looking at the lieutenants, Billy Blake, John, looking at John Cab, Jerry, Freddie, Schultz, that's who I want to be like. Then when you were captain, you were picking guys. And then as chiefs, there were a lot of guys out there. And I used to kid around. I used to say WWRFD or WWNV. What would Richie Fanning do, or what would Nick Visconti do? And if I did about 80% of the time what they would have did, I knew I was going to be in good shape. So they would, Richie called me up and he said, hey, Jack Doherty, nobody knows Jack Doherty just got hurt, has health issues. He's not coming back. Do you want to come to the 4-4? I said, I'll be there in 15 minutes. And he said, no. Come in Thursday night. I'll let the division know you're going to go in. First tour is Thursday night. I show up Thursday night, and I was actually relieving Richie. So this is 1990. This is like 93 now, early 93. And as I'm getting dressed, we had the old blue shirts. All the officers wore those light blue shirts. And he goes, oh, I forgot to tell you. Now every world chiefs wear white shirts. But he says, we wear white shirts. And as the chief, how many white shirts do I have to buy now? So look decent. And he says, no. And the reason is, just like the white helmet, we're in charge. When people know when we walk in the firehouse, we're in charge. We're the chief. And they have to know that. And he didn't mean it like, hey, we're the chief. It's just, no, the respect, that's who we are. We're the chiefs. And that's when you realize, hey, you're the chief, be the chief, be the part, look the part, and do the part. So Richie was a great guy. Another guy, a chief there was, his name flitted in and flitted out. I'll probably remember it. 3 o'clock. Joe Bracco. And I met Joe when I was in the 5th Division. He was the captain of 58 Engine. And he was a really gruff, guy. They used to love because he'd come into work and listen to Bob Grant. And you could tell how long he'd listened to Bob Grant by the mood he walked in the door.
Oh, boy.
I remember, he was relieving me, and I was trying to do the reports. And like he said to me, hey, Tom, always remember, when you sign your name, you're not just signing your name. You're signing my name, Richie's name, that you're for. So when you put that endorsement, that's what that endorsement represents. Wow. And so there's always guys giving you a lesson. Hey, remember, this is not just your reputation; it's our reputation. And they had all great units. The guys in the 90, they were good.
This is where it's going to get good. Come on,
mission continues.
Chief, come on.
And listen, they made things interesting at times. That's what it is. But, it is. You can count on. They're going to do the job. They're going to do the job. And if I'm going to talk about the 4-4, I got to give a shout out to the Rat. The Rat was Billy Ross, a long-time aide. That was the flaming typewriter on their car. And
that's right.
Billy was. I remember being at went to turn out, losing this fly. I said, Billy, transmit the second alarm. Already done. I got it. It's in. I got it. If I know what else he used to do, he'd come up to me and he'd say, we've been here for 15 minutes. And because that was always we always talking about 20-minute mark. hey, if we ain't got this fire out in 20 minutes,
Right. So
we are now on the downside. So he would always be that clock coming up to you, 15 minutes, hey, we're at 20 minutes. And just watching the whole backside of you. So Billy was really good. I had great captains, just think of these captains. I had John Vigiano, Danny Mayer, Richie, I had Joe Caniglio and I had Marty Coyne, Tommy McEnroe. At one point, the 4 officers in 175 had over 120 years experience. It was Jerry Dombrowski, Larry Weston, Hank Mellon. I can't remember that, but they all had like 30 years each. Really get that kind of experience. So great officers. The firemen were great. And I guess if we want to talk anything, we could touch on the Atlantic Avenue fire. I know it's been mentioned a few times, and a terrible fucking night, So that night, I'm at the division, 120's out of service. And you know what, people, when I hear people talk about, when you hear people talk about a fire, you always got to remember they're giving you their prism of what they saw, and they didn't see the whole 360. And, we're not doing a critique all the time. So when you hear somebody, they say something, yeah, it made sense to them, but did you know this? So like when they talk about Atlantic Avenue, I think when people you picture Atlantic Avenue, this major street, when it's really not a major street, it's almost like a service road. If you're like, because this is where the viaduct goes up.
Yeah.
So you really have the buildings, the curb, and then enough room for a parked car and maybe a truck to get by. And then it got a 3-foot wall. So it's in this really narrow space. And it's a difficult spot for companies to come into because you can't come down on it. You got to go swing around, and there's parts where certain trucks can't come in. So on this day, 120's out of service. I'm at the division. Hit a fire commander first one. And to be honest with you, when you're in a 4-4, you're working in this area. Hey, we've been there, done that. We got it. I got good companies. So you hear them when you get to report, and we were probably like the third unit on the scene because it was 175 was there. It's a row frame. It's a rose frame. It's a end frame. Fire on the first floor. And just to make it, if you ever see the video that the guy that was
Warren.
Like as you come in, you could see the 4-4 car is not in the street. But when we pulled in, we had to go on the street on the sidewalk just so rigs can get into the block. And so I see the line. I could see, we got the fire. I could see the line going into the building. I get out of the car, and a lot of times guys will say, I'm going to put all my gear on before I get in the car. And, now bunker gear, like back then we didn't have bunker gear. Bunker gear is a little different. And I remember Richie Fanning said, hey, don't put your stuff on. When you get there, this way, when you get out of the car, as you go put on your coat, it just gives you that pause to see everything. Just like when you're getting off that rig as a fireman, hey, stop, look at the building, get a good size up. It's the same thing. Get that pause just to settle you down and give them a chance to operate. But as I got out of the car, I could see that the line's not moving. You could see the line, but it's not moving into the building. And I rush up into the hallway. I say, hey, what's going on? Why isn't that line moving? And the smoke is back down in the hallway. So we can't find a door. So they started breaching the wall. I said, okay, it's a lath plastic, and it's going to take a little bit of time, but we'll get it. And now I move out onto the sidewalk, and it starts to happen, and probably why the handy-talkie communications was not as good as it could be, because we were sort of operating in a box. Like everybody's right near each other, 15, 20 feet. And as this fire's going on, and I'm telling you, when you're standing here as a chief, and you're saying, where are these companies? Like, where is, you're so used to them coming in. And I have this woman screaming in my ear, just wailing about her mother. And I said, where is your mother? What building are you from? And she says, the exposure. I said, okay, she's fine. We'll find her. We'll find her. And she's just this constant roar in my ear. In fact, the cop said, you want me to get rid of it? I said, no, just don't worry about it. So now we got the fire, they're breaching the wall. And it's taking a little bit of time. And now the next two companies in are really, and I'm speeding up in time of it's 332 and 231. Now they're stretching their lines. And, the next turning point on the fire is I hear from the rear, you got fire out the rear. And now here's where, if I look back, I probably should have said, are you talking about the fire building? Hindsight's 20/20. And to be fair to the guy who gave that, I think it's the OVM from 175. He's hopping fences. because he had to go down about 4 or 5 buildings. And I think he sees the fire out and he wants to report it. And so where he was, I think it looked like it was coming out of the fire building, and it wasn't coming out of the fire building. It was coming out of the exposure. So what I thought was I had a fire from front to rear, and now it's going out the rear. That's when I transmitted to second, because usually you're not going to get that vertical extension on the lower floors right away. But if that fire gets out the rear, it's going to take the siding in the back and then roll down the back. And then I'm saying, oh shit, where's this one? Now we're losing this. I got nobody here. I got to find this woman. And that's when, Scott LePedra and 176 shows up. Let me just wind the clock back to the beginning of that tour. I come in that day, and we had no overtime in the 4-4 overtime. And we had enough guys to fill if they're in between the vacations. We had enough guys to fill every slot plus another company. So the overtime was. So I come in and I look down, and these Probies just got assigned, and I said, "Who's Baker? Who?" And the guy says, "Oh, the Proby." I said, "We're hiring a Proby. We got no overtime here, and you're hiring a Proby." He says, "I couldn't get anybody else." I said, "Okay." I said, "I got to go visit this guy. Let me go meet this guy later on." And then on a run just before, at the end of the tour, I was riding with 176. I hear this guy talking on the radio. I didn't recognize the voice. I said, "Hey, who's working at 176?" And my aide says, "Oh, that's the new covering captain, Scott LePedra." I said, "He's working tonight." I said, "Okay, we got another place to visit." And who would know that, I never get to see LePedra, and I got to see Brian Baker in the hospital. I think he's a covering captain now. So that just shows you that it's just, you plan on something, and 2 hours later, your life is completely changed. So now I got fire out the rear, and that's when 176 showed up. I said, "Listen, I got to find this woman. I could lose this building. We're losing this. I got to find this woman." And if you go back to that video of that took, if you see just as they pass, you see the 4-4 car. There's a 1-story like a roof, and you see a woman coming down off there. So I think
yes,
right. That's who we were looking for, and she somehow got out the rear. So now 176 goes up, and here's something about when you have these fatal fires. We need to critique every fire, but what's going to happen when you have a fatal fire? We are going to go over that fire like a fine-tooth comb. And what safety does is, back then they were using Post-it notes by minute, but this is what the guy, so they could try to figure out to put everything together. This is what, okay, this makes sense. So I think they overall do a good job. And one of the things that, you should avoid is everybody talking about the fire to each other. Give safety the chance to get their first accounting for stuff. Because we're not looking to beat people up. We're saying what happened here and what could we change what could we do in the future? Because what happens next is, so 176 goes up, and now it's just banking down to the street. I mean, you couldn't see anything in the street because Timmy Stackpole even told me later on that he walked into a rig. That it was everything was just banked down the street. I said, "Timmy, I got to find this woman." And now I got the line stretched because when safety asked me, "When did you put 332 into the exposure?" I said, "I don't have any recollection of that. I have no recollection of that." And later on, when I went around to talk to the companies after safety told me, gave me an overview, and I went out, I was down in Sheffield Avenue, and I think it was Mike Carbone was the engine officer. And I mentioned how I said, "I don't have a record." He says, "Chief, don't you remember? I was standing right there. After Timmy went in, you touched Timmy's back on the shoulder and said, 'Timmy, I don't know where I'm going to put you. I'm either going to put you here or into the exposure. I'm just waiting for somebody to tell me.'" And he said, as you walked away, Timmy shouted down, "Hey, we need the line up there." So once again, it's like no handy-talkie communications. So that's how 332 winds up in the building. So I got 176, 332, and all of a sudden, it just super black, and then you heard this rumbling sound. And I thought I was going to see the front of the building down. And then it sort of clears up a little bit, and the building's intact. Nobody's really saying anything, and that's when you get that fireball. That fireball that comes up, like you see on that video. And so now that's where 231 was going. And so now Eddie Kilduff goes up into. I said, "Eddie, I have no idea something's going on here on the second floor. I don't know what's going on in the exposure." So Eddie goes up there, and I'm watching 231. They're starting to knock down the fire. I'm saying, "Okay, we're getting this. This fire is getting knocked down." Now the companies are showing up, and all of a sudden this guy comes coming out of the building towards me, and he's wearing a 242 helmet. He's a captain of I think it's 240. He's either 240 or 242. It was this guy Joe Greslak, And so here's everything is going crazy. And I got this guy coming at me, and I have no idea who he is. And he goes, "You've had an interior collapse. You got, company." I'm saying, like, who are you? Like, where are you working? He says, "Oh, I'm riding with the three." That's when they had the Mentor Chiefs, and he was riding. And then later on, Joe
right.
Joe Grezlak gets killed he gets killed on 9/11. And just as he finishes talking, I see 231 just stop, and I just pushed him out of the way. And it was Pete Iovino. It was the officer. Danny Wetzel, I think, had the nozzle.
Danny Wetzel had the nozzle.
I'm screaming at them, "Move that effing line! Move that! You got to!" And they say, "Hey, we're losing water." And I remember I could reach down and I could squeeze, and I'm just yelling, "I don't fucking care! Just move! Just put whatever you got in there." And later on, when I went around, I was talking, and Danny Wetzel said, "Chief, I didn't know what was wrong, but I never heard you yell, and you were yelling." I'm saying, "No, something's wrong here." And just as other companies that got their kink out of their line, and they did a great job moving in, knocking down that fire. Now Eddie comes out. Eddie goes in there. I got rescued too. I think Eric Rena comes along. He's in there with them, and you're standing there. This is knocked down, and if you ever see the pictures, it's 2 floors of fire. The floors are gone. Everything's burning. Now 236 takes the line up on this. I think John Bell Neighbors was there. Like, they were afraid to knock down a fire to bring the rest of the building down. And I think if you've seen this thing on a video or a movie, you say, this didn't happen. I mean, it was just fortunate the companies that we had working there. And just to tell you something about that, like at one point, Timmy Stackwell tells them, "Get out of the building. You guys got to leave. You guys got to leave." And, he says, "Chief, I couldn't believe that they weren't, like there was," and Tim, I remember talking to Timmy in the hospital, and he says, "Chief, I was looking up the fire. It was beautiful. All the colors." He said it was amazing. And I read a book later on about people who survive life-threatening situations. Everything slows down and becomes very vivid for them. And that's how what Timmy was describing. And it's just, listening to him, it's just amazing. And, what he went through after that, and to
come back.
And then come back, and, what Tara and his kids went through, and then with 9/11. So now now it's just, we're waiting to get him out, because as soon as we get Timmy out, I went into I said, "Listen, as soon as we have him out, everybody's out of here." And, at one point I asked Carruthers, because he came in, and I'm going to tell you got a guy coming in, that you respect and trust above you. It's just, it takes that little pressure off, because he's taking on that pressure. And I said to him, "At any point, did you think about saying, guys, out of the building?" And he said, "Tom, there's no sense giving an order that nobody's going to pay attention to. They would not leave him in there." And he's right, and I just want to, see what he would say. And it's amazing that, unfortunately we lost Jimmy Blackmore and Scott LePedra, and the injuries that Terry Quinn and Brian Baker and Timmy went through. But, so everything was just happening so fast in this tight little area. And what was a benefit of that, and I'm not telling you this is what my intentions were, I'm just telling you when you look back into the situation is, I think if ever a lot of this went on the handy talkies, what do you think would have happened? You would have had people trying to converge and trying to help out. And I remember at one point I put an officer at the front of that explosion. I said, "Nobody goes in here. Nobody goes in here past you. I don't care who they are. We were just keeping it to a limited group." And the guys from Rescue, Eric, Eddie, they did a phenomenal job, And so just talking about that, that's the gist of the fire, how it just went downhill. One thing you guys got to understand, if you get into these situations, let safety do their job. I think they do an overall good job. And, one thing, like what we're going to do is, as we look at this job, there's a thing called the Swiss cheese theory. And what that is if you look through a block of Swiss cheese, you can't see. But if you take slices out, there's always holes. And we have those holes at every fire, but they're covered by experienced guys, sometimes luck or whatever. And that's why you want to drill all the time. And when they pull these fires apart, it's really crushing, because you see every little thing that I wish I would have did this. Like, why didn't I ask him? Was he talking about the fire building? Things of that nature. So let safety do their investigation. They were always going to find problems, and you just got to move forward. I was just talking to somebody who had a recent fire, and he was a captain, and I was just talking. And he said, "Listen, this is what's going to happen. You let it play out. The goal now is whatever happened. Now we got to move forward as best we can." So, and these things have an impact on ways you don't even realize, because I saw like guys who were off on mutuals, and now, for whatever reason, and now they say, Why did I take off? I should have been working.
Yeah. So 5
And you
is
forget about it. You don't even think about that. That wasn't on my radar screen until I realized somebody said, hey, you better talk to so-and-so. And let me tell you something, what happened to me. Just before this fire, I got a call from Ray Downing. He says, hey, Tom, would you be interested in coming over to the rescue battalion? And my first response was, hey, Ray, you got the right number? I said, Ray, I never worked in a SOC unit. I anything. He says, I'm not asking you to be a SOC firefighter, or you're going to take over classes. I need somebody to manage the battalion and the incidents. And I said, let me think about it. And then I had had this fire, and I saw him. I said, listen, I can't leave right now. And you always think you have everything under control. And I got a call one day. I'm in the office, and John Iavola just relieved me. And I said, Chief, it's for you. And it was a chief who had a fatal fire before this. And he says, Tom, I went to call you 2 or 3 times, but I hung up the phone before I called you, but I just wanted to talk to you. And he said, let me tell you what happened to me, what my reaction to the fire, the impact on the fire to me, and you take it for whatever it's worth. And as he's describing what he went through, all I'm doing is saying, yeah. And it was about a 15, 20-minute phone call. I thanked him for calling me. I hung up the phone, and John Iavola says, Tom, what's the matter? I says, John, I've been waiting for the shoe to fall, and I didn't know the shoe fell already. And then he said, listen, Tom, a few of us have been talking a lot. You don't realize you changed. There's things that you never bothered you before, and we just didn't know how to say it to you. And so I went home, straightened out a few things there, and then I realized, I need a change. It was like 3 months after the fire, and I said, I just need a change, and so I called it break, and I said, if you're still interested, I think I need a change. I need to get out of here, and so I went over to the rescue battalion. So when you have these fatal fires, understand that we're going to pick this fire apart, but we should be looking at every fire like that. We should be critiquing every fire. Hey, what did you do? Why'd you do that? It's just get into that habit, because when you have this fatal fire and we're going to show everything that happened, it's really crushing at times. So, but you got to take from that moment is how we're going to move forward. So that was just throw that on the Atlantic Avenue fire. But it was
just to tell you, Chief, I think I've said this before. During that time, I think May to July, we were becoming the squad 98, right? And for those couple of months, we weren't online, so we were still an engine. And when we all went to 288, we got relocated on the second alarm to 332, and we were listening to it at the Firehouse. And then the chief started showing up after a while. And when we found out, that one of the brothers in the Firehouse had passed away, I remember walking out and looking at his shoes on the apparatus floor, thinking to myself, this job, as much as we love it and everything, gets as real as a heart attack, right? And now here he is. He ain't coming back to put them shoes on. It was just, we just signed up to do more. We had just signed up to go to, special ops. And I know 252 was, I don't know if they were operating as a squad there, but, for us. I
think they were a squad by then.
Yeah. So they might have put them to work as a squad. You might have done that. But when we went, then guys started coming back from the job, and we ended up staying there, I think, for most, if not till the morning. I don't even remember, to be honest with you.
Just repeat what happened. What they did was they took out they took about half the bearing wall out on the first floor. That's what. So when we had to fire the front to rear, we had fire front to rear on the fire side, and then from the back half, because nothing was showing on the front. I mean, think about who walked past that front of that building. 176, 103, 290 standing there, 332. It's there was nothing showing at all. And then all of a sudden, and when I was talking, people were saying how their floors were starting to bow a little bit. So it was just a house of cards. Now it was free burning, and this thing just it went from the simplified that, hey, we're going to breach the wall, and within a short period of time, everything just drops down on you. So that's I don't know what much more to say that. Then I went to the SOC battalion and sort of rejuvenated myself. Yeah, because now I had to pick up my game because a lot of stuff I had to learn from scratch, and it was just a great experience. Working with Ray Downey and and I worked with Charlie Casper, John Palillo, and unfortunately,
Oh my gosh, yeah,
Both of
Casper.
those guys passed away.
Billy Siegel was there as a chief. He finished as the chief of Special Operations Command. Donnie Hay, you had all good, just solid people, and you just fed off their knowledge, and you always wanted to pick up your game. And then next thing I know, I get promoted to deputy chief. If there's a deputy chief out there, back then you were bouncing around, and Nick Visconti calls me up. I was assigned to the 11th Division. He said, "How about going to 3rd Division R Group?" And I said, "Why would I want to do that?" He says, "Because all you're going to do is work in the 1st, 3rd, 6th, and 7th Divisions." I said, "I'm in." And so I bounced around that for a while, and then Nick said, "Hey, we got the opening here," and I went to the 3rd Division, and it's just a great place. Obviously, Vinny Dunn worked there, and just great people, and had a great office staff. Billy Alford was the captain that was in charge. The aides were all great. Bobby Lever, he died of a trade center cancer. Carlos Sauer died on 9/11. Ronnie Barber had a great PAA. Suzette Charles, who was outstanding. She could run the office when you knew she could run the office. Hiring, do vacations. She just did everything. And Dennis Stephan was another guy that was was a light duty battalion chief there. That was an outstanding guy. And at the time it's just when you go to fires in the 3rd Division, they were interesting. One thing about the 1st and 3rd Division, as a chief, your battalion chief and stuff, you get involved in the fires more, and they're a little more chief oriented and stuff like that. And it was just a great experience. And I don't know. Do we go on to the Trade Center now? I don't know where you want to go.
Mackerel.
Yeah, we
A
can
lot, but yeah.
go for it, Chief. So
So
you're
what happens? I'm working the night before. Night before I went around the companies, just visiting. Just I used to call it going out trolling. Just find out what's going on out there. And it's amazing how sometimes you go into the firehouse and firemen to tell you what's actually going on, and you don't even know about it. So you're just going after information. Showing the flag of the division. And one of my last stops was 22 and 13 because Walter Hines, fireman I worked with, was the captain of the truck. And he goes, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "I got all this bullshit administrative. I got these meetings I got to go to." He said, "Come back here for lunch. This way I'll have a good lunch." I'll see you for lunch tomorrow. And next time I see him is in the hotel lobby. So now the plane hits, and I remember guys yelling out, "Hey, a plane!" We heard the plane, and it was like everybody else did. We thought it was going to be like a Piper Cub or like the Yankee pitcher who went into the building. And then all of a sudden you realize, and now you're seeing some of the shots. And I remember the guy, "Come on, we got to go. We're going to be going, Chief." I said, No. It's the 1st and the 11th Division. That's the 11th Division. But people sometimes you hear about the losses in SOC, the losses in the 1st and the 3rd Division. The 11th Division took a big hit,
Right.
And because you don't think of them as that, but they're just right.
118, all those companies coming across the bridge, right?
Okay, that's with Dennis Cross and Timmy.
Right, 5-7, right.
Now my brain is okay. I wasn't too sure, because what happens is once the citywide tour commander gets involved, there's 2 chiefs that are designated 421 and 422. Like someone will automatically become the citywide commander. I would assume there was going to be, I think it was the 13th Division. They would have been probably the better choice. But now I'm sitting there saying, I'm thinking now, okay, they got the fire. I got the rest of the Manhattan. So you're thinking about what do I have here? You're thinking about the backside of all that fire. And then the next thing you know, we see, I look at it, I was passing through the office, and I see a plane going. I said, "Oh, they had a live shot?" He said, "No, Chief, that's the second plane." And then with that, the phone rings. It was the Manhattan supervising dispatcher. He said, "Chief, they just transmitted another 5th alarm for the South Tower. You're going to be the first deputy. We're working on the assignment. We'll get it to you as soon as we figure it out." So get my aide call. I'm grabbing pads. I want to make sure I had pads because I didn't know what I had in the car. We were going to have to write down this whole assignment and the thing. I get down to the car, and once again, if you could just change that moment in time to do something different, because just as I was getting in the car, Chief Devlin comes flying down the stairs. Dennis was captain of 75 engine. I think it was up in 35 and 4. I can't remember what his earlier career was. Just a solid guy. I had counted on for a lot of things in the office. I could run things by, and hey, Dennis, I need you, and you knew he was going to be taken care of. And he says, "Come on, hey, Chief, let me go. You're going to have your hands full in the lobby. You're going to need another guy in that lobby. Billy and Alan can take the office." And I said, "Okay, Dennis, come on in the car." And that sealed it. Unfortunately, that sealed his fate. So now we're in the car and we're writing down because now there's two of us. I said, "Dennis, here's a pad." And now that they start giving us the fifth alarm assignment, so I wanted to make sure we had it right. And as we got it, I said, "Dennis, read off your." So we knew we had the two the two writing sort of writing lists or the two assignment lists. And I remember at that point when I looked up, like you couldn't see the Trade Center from where we were because it's like that dog leg. And I remember looking out over the river and just saying to myself, "Look how gorgeous!" I mean, it was like a movie screen picture. And then you made that turn and you're just seeing this fucking disaster. And so we got about a block and a half from the thing, and I could see the command post in the street, and I could see Gansey down there. So being that I had, so I'm saying this is what sort of sealed Dennis's fate. I said, "Listen, I'll meet you guys in the South. Take the board, take everything instead of us running around. I'm going to give them my copy of the assignment, and then I'll meet you in the South Tower." So now I get down. They take off at the South Tower. I go down to see, I see Pete. Steve Marciello was there, and who later on died of a Trade Center cancer. And everybody has different reactions. I don't think we've ever done a good analysis of what actually happened, who did what, or if we could piece it together. Because when I told Pete Hayden, my recollection, I told Pete, I said, "Hey, I'm your first deputy on the second, fifth alarm," and I remember him looking at me like saying, "What's second, fifth alarm?" And then I heard other people say that he's the one who transmitted it. So, but I'll just tell you my recollection. I'm not saying I'm right. And then I remember I said, "Well, here's the assignment." So somebody had it. And then now I'm looking, I'm playing like, the shit is coming. I didn't see any people, but breeze falling down, and just made a beeline for the first building I run into is the Marriott. It used to be the Vista. I think it was the Omni or the Vista.
Yeah, the Vista.
And I remember I was at the South End, and now I'm walking, and I'm saying I got to figure out. And I went to a guy, "How do I get to the South Tower?" And this was the fire safety director, and he goes, "The fire, he says, listen, do you want me? Should we evacuate the whole?" He said, "Yeah, get the people out." He said, "Well, we need help." And I said, so I stopped, and as companies were coming, I just grabbed, "Hey, just wait, come here, just here." And one of them was 13 truck with both the Heinz. I know 25 truck was there. So the guys were listening to me. A lot of times they'll just blow you by. "Hey, we're going to the South Tower." And with that, Sal Casano comes in. And I said, "Sal, I'm just getting companies. Then I got to go to the South Tower." He said, "No, Tom, stay here. They got plenty of chiefs in there. You had Donald Burns, Jerry Barbara. So they were above my pay grade." And am I thinking that you were going to have this collapse? Okay, well, let me run this. Get this guy his company. So I got about a dozen companies and told them, "Listen, just here's 2 floors you're doing, and go through the floors and then just come right down. We don't need any reports. Just finish up and come down here." And I remember arguing with the guy. I said, "I need your pass keys. The pass keys, you can open all the doors." And he said, "I can't give you the pass keys." And we were actually here, not thinking that this catastrophe was going to happen. I'm writing down who's getting the pass keys to make this guy happy. And he didn't even have a fucking hotel room.
It's funny how you think of these things.
And so now after I had everybody assigned, I said, "You know what? Let me take a look in the South Tower." And I started walking down. I said, "You know what? They got it. Stay here. This is what Sal told you to do. Just do your job." And now I'm walking south back towards where the elevators were, and the command station. I had the desk that they was working from, and that's when the South Tower starts coming down, because it's just. And at first it's like saying, it felt like an earthquake. That's how and then everything's just shaking like you see in the movies, and you just pause for that second, and you're like, "The fuck is going on here?" And it's just like, get out of this building. And if I wasn't facing south, any other direction, I'm in the collapse. And I got about maybe 50 feet. And that's when you felt that pressure wave that comes down. Jay and I were talking about this pressure, that pressure wave that came down with the ground. And I remember now things are coming down. It's like not heavy stuff. It's just the ornamental stuff is coming down and just getting pushed, and you're full over stuff, and that just black with dust, and it just, you couldn't see anything. And my next recollection was I hear a guy saying, "Hey, can you hear my voice? Can you hear me?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, and I remember the guy saying, "Well, I think that means we're alive," and then we're just shouting at it to sort of get to each other. And then we said, okay, let's fan out to find a place to get out of here. And it was just black with dust. I mean, you couldn't really, see anything. And of course, as a chief, you don't have a light. You think I should have been carrying a light. And you're just muddling your way through, and I hear a guy yell out, "Hey, there's an entrance over here." So everybody made a beeline for that. And I remember looking out, and you didn't. There wasn't debris, but all that dust, like that built over the dust, and you're like, it still didn't register that the South Tower came down. And I remember seeing a life-saving rope at the door, so I hooked the life-saving rope on a rail, and I walked the rope back in, and just was calling out to people, "Hey, if you can hear my name, if you can hear me, just come to me and just follow the rope." And then I made my way. I got back to the elevator shaft, and that was clearing up. And it was two guys from 58 Engine. I said, "Come on, we got to get out of here." And they said, "No, we can't. We got our officers trapped." And it was Bobby Nagel, 58 Engine.
Yeah,
great, excellent officer. We're talking to Bobby Nagel just as we're talking now. We could talk to him. "Hey, Bobby." He really wasn't in any pain. He wasn't in, but there was just this wall of debris. And I mean, it's you got a chief. What do I got? I got my hands, and I got no tools, and I got the two guys from the engine. And so I said, "Hey, just stay right here. I'm going to get help." And then I tied off the rope. I go out, and as I look out, I could see company coming. So I went I was going south, and I ran into Ray Brown and Lieutenant and 113. I'm like, "Hey, you're in fucking the first division, and 113 is showing up." And I said, "Hey, Ray, just go in this about 50 feet, follow the rope, just see whatever you can do. I'll try to get somebody else." And by stupidity, or just after I continued to walk, and I'm saying, like, why can't I see anybody? Because I'm still walking south. I turn around, and I'm going back north to the command post. And I don't know whether it was the sound of the North Tower collapsing, or I just happened to look up at that time. When I looked up, that's when you see where it kicks out and they come down, and I just made a beeline, started sprinting the other way, and I was probably maybe a half a block out of the big debris, and I remember just getting blown off my feet, and then tumbling. And now you're getting, all this, the pulverized stuff is just overwhelming you. And what's the first thing that we tell you? Grab your helmet, protect your head. And I'm doing that, trying to hold my helmet on, and I couldn't breathe. And I just got rid of my helmet, and I turtled in my coat. And, it feels like an eternity when that was going on. And I remember, now it was getting up. Because actually, when I first turned around, because of the buildings, I could see the North Tower, but I didn't realize that the South Tower was already down. And now that's when now you're seeing, both towers are down, the situation we're in. And now it's like, okay, I got to find a command post. And I remember running into Artie Laciotis, safety chief who came in, and Nick Santangelo guys came from the fire academy. And I said, "Hey, listen, set up let's do a surface search, just do whatever you can, try to get water. I know where you guys are. Let me find a command post." And that's when I ran into Frank Carruthers and Dario Gonzalez. He was the OEM medical director, and that was it. And you're looking around, and you're like, what are we going to do here? And the next thing I know, Frank is telling me, "Hey, get a hold of SOC, make sure everything is, everything we got, get here." And be honest with you, I'm not even thinking what we lost. We just lost half the command. And next thing I know, he says, "I need you to go over to Police Plaza," because we couldn't communicate. And he says, "We want to make sure these like 10 or 12 things are happening that OEM had set up for a total disaster." And so I don't know how I got over there. I remember walking into Police Plaza. When I was looking at guys, covered with debris, and you're not seeing.
Yeah, looking at yourself. Yeah.
That's what and so I walk in the lobby, and I remember them all like staring at me, like, "Who's this guy?" And I said, "Listen, I'm coming from the fire, Chief Carruthers. I need to get invested, Chief Esposito. There's a series of things we want to make sure we have no communications." So the guy gets me into an elevator, and now we go upstairs. And as I was walking with him to go into the command center, he said, No, you stay right here." And you ever like in the movies where people run out into the, so I remember Chief Esposito, Bill Dunn, I think was the chief of the department. He was either on crutches or a cane. And about 15 people come running out in the lobby, and everybody's just staring at me. And so I tell him what's going on, what Carruthers wanting, and he says, most of us, we got to work working. And I said, "Listen, is there 5 people here?" Because he told me, "Hey, you might have to stay as the liaison." And as I started walking into the thing, he said, no. Take this guy downstairs. And the next thing you know, I'm wearing ESU pants. I got a police shirt. And it wasn't until I got down into like their locker room and I saw myself with all the crap that was all over me. So I wound up as liaison for a while. And I think I got released by Eddie Kilduff. I'm not 100% sure on that. I was there for a period of time. And when I got back, it was like right after they got Jay Jonas and them out. And now we're sort of pulling people back and trying to. And I remember saying to somebody, "Hey, what about people in South Tower? Thinking about Dennis and Carl." And the guys just said, I don't think anybody made it out of South Tower. It was like, and that was like the first realization that we're losing Dennis.
Hey, Chief, you just in that 15, 20 minutes that you've been talking, there's like 5 decisions that you made that saved you. Like it had to be that you're supposed to be here, right? Because you talk to a lot of people that aren't here, right? You could have, if you would have continued to the South Tower when you were in the hotel and you said, "Now I'm going to go back," that saved you. When you saw the guys from 58 there, you came out to go get guys to help. That saved you. It's just
that's what we said about Jonas, right? The fact that he stopped for that lady put him where he was supposed to be.
It's did they save her or did she save them?
No doubt.
But even I had a chief, it's Ed Henry. He saw me like 2 weeks later, and he stopped and he was staring at me, and I was like, "What's the matter?" He says, "I thought you were a ghost." He says, "I can't believe you got out of that building. I don't know how you got out where you were." And I remember just the other day, Pat McNally was saying that Sal Casano said, "Listen, I think I know where Tommy Galvin was. Let's go." And that was before,
What
happened when the South Tower sheared off one side of the building.
Right, it made a V.
Basically, it was a 23-story building, 150 feet across. When it was finished, it was just a 3-story, and it was all around the elevator shaft. That sort of held up that area. And, when I was back, it's terrible, losing Carl and Dennis. And, listen, I had no idea what to say to the family, because you came back and, it's just a difficult situation. And, I lost my train of thought for a second.
Yeah, but there's a million stories of that day. Not just firefighters, but you should have zigged when you could have zagged, and that saved you. Like, my father was late getting down to the buildings that day, and he was supposed to be in the buildings, and that's when it all happened. So you got
a lot of people talk about it.
You go back to the division. And you say, why did that happen? Why'd you do that? I don't know why I did it. It just happened. And just to go back with 113, I was convinced that the guys from 58, and I'm saying to myself, I sent 113 in there. And then about 4 days later, I just happened to pick up the paper in the kitchen, and there was an article about 113. And I'm like, I said, where's that list? And I actually called up 249. I said, let me speak to the officer. I said, these guys are alive? I don't know how they made it out of the building. And later on, we got to the point where we found the rope that was tied off and the pillar, and we know that Bobby Nagel was within a 30-foot radius.
I remember that, Chief. His name always sticks out to me.
We never found Bobby Nagel, and it's like, how do you explain this? We were talking to the guy. The guy wasn't in pain. I don't remember him sounding like he was in pain. It was just that he was enclosed in it, but he just didn't have the way to get out. And now we go back to the division, and I'm going to tell you that ride back to the division. I felt
my
like
goodness!
And going up the stairs because you're walking in, and I went in the office, and Billy Alford came in, a great guy, and he goes, "Hey, you all right?" I said, "Yeah." And now the comedy of the situation. He goes, "Why are you wearing a police shirt?" It goes, and in fact, later on, about a year later, I had a guy come up and he says, "Chief, do you have a twin brother who's in the cops?" I said, "No, that was me walking around."
Me.
And just the things the weird stuff, and now it was like, "Hey, Billy, I was down back and forth to Trade Center, and then they said, 'Listen, you're going to be the acting division commander. Just figure." And so we just had to, "Hey, let's figure out who we're missing, who's hurt, equipment," and just try to get the division. And that's what and then not only get the equipment to get the division up and running. I made sure I was out there every day visiting the units. Say, "Hey, listen, guys, we're here. We're gonna move ahead. We know these issues we're dealing with. We're doing our best that we can. We're going to muddle through. And that's what basically most divisions did, because headquarters was wiped out too. And we became our own little fire department. And so we're going to solve our problems. And guys would say, hey, can we do that? Yeah, we're going to do it. We got to, this is how we're going to solve the problem. Anybody says anything, say you got a direct order from Chief Galvin. That's what, don't worry about it. Just do it. And, guys stepped up everywhere, there's a million stories you can tell about.
Oh, a million stories.
And,
So many.
so that's, so that was sort of my, I don't know what more to say about the trade center. It's just
listen.
even when Jay Jonas was talking, and he's talking about like Patty Brown's communication. I mean, I never heard that before.
I never heard that either. Yeah.
Just wanted to say, I would go back to the Atlantic Avenue fight when I was talking about the prism. You only need during that. So now safety does the investigation, and so now they have a meeting. It's about 5 days after the Atlantic Avenue fire, and so now you're scrambling to get the reports from everybody so you can go to this meeting. And there was one CD-14, the fire, from the officer. And I'm telling you, I'm reading this and I'm like saying, was I at the same fire? Like, when did this happen? I don't remember this. And when I got to the safety meeting, they said, Tom, anything, you want to throw out? And I said, I have a CD-14 and I don't understand it. And Pete Hayden says, this company, right? I said, yeah. He says, I'm having two chiefs go talk to the guy because it doesn't make sense to us either. Here's what happened. He came in after 231 knocked the fire down. And now when 231 starts coming into the guys from 332 and 176 and Timmy, they start yelling out, they need help in here. Because this guy, came in saying, and because he wrote it that they were the first unit to go in and get the guys out. That was his perspective. And I remember talking, and I said to the guy, did you see the video that's going on around? He goes, yeah. I said, you see that fireball? Yeah. He goes, yeah. I said, how did you knock down the fire if you were the first company in there? And his answer was, Chief, I swear on my mother's grave. That's what happened. And I could never figure it out. And it wasn't until I was talking to the guys in 231 that Danny Russell said, no, Chief, that was us calling for help. It wasn't. So see what I'm saying? Like this guy showed up and that's his view, but it was not. But that wasn't the reality of the fire.
Right.
Well, you got to be careful when guys say things, and that's why you need to see the whole picture before say, "Hey, this is what happened and how it happened."
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know we took we went off on a left-hand turn here, and the same thing with the trade center. Everybody stepped up there for even the civilian side of the department, the shops, and it's just a long slog. And as you go through these anniversaries, I remember the 20th anniversaries and. Carlos Sarro, he's got 4 kids on the job, and you just think about everything in his life that they missed. And Dennis Devlin, because Dennis would have been a great he was just a fun guy to be around. And it's just a terrible
nonsense, but nothing.
Loss,
absolutely nothing.
So, the next thing I know,
back promoted right after that, right? Yeah.
Then they decided to be you go back to the boroughs and stuff like that, and I was going to, there's a thing about what happened just before, just to put some levity or some, instead of being.
Yeah, let's bring it up a little bit here.
About 6 weeks after 9/11, I'm in the office, and just like everybody, we're just working around the clock. You're just mentally tired, and I got a call from the citywide talk commander, who will remain nameless. And here we're just trying to take care of the family. It's just he says, "Hey Tom, I'm trying to take care of some paperwork. They want to put a hydrant in front of at this location." And I'm like looking at the phone. I'm like, you know what's going on out here? And I said, okay, I'll take care of it. So now I call up the Bob Shilton and the 10th Battalion, and I said, listen, I apologize for what I'm going to ask you to do, but I got the call. I just need someone to just check it out. So I apologize, but everything we're dealing with. So now we were getting ready to leave. And Shilton calls me back. It was like 15 minutes later. He said, "Hey, we're good to go on the hydrant." Why? Of course we would need. Why wouldn't we want a hydrant, right? So I called the citywide talk commander. I said, "Listen, I always mention the guy's name. It's okay for that hydrant." And he goes, "Can you send me a report?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you got to be fun. Kidding me." So I put a note. I'm going out. I come back. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm starting the paperwork, and it's like, good. So I type up, "Hey, inspection was done at such a low location, the hydrant should go in. You think it's nothing. About 8 weeks later,
I'll kill somebody.
Oh my God.
I get a call from Jimmy Long at the press desk. He says, Chief, you're going to be on the CBS News tonight. I said, what are you talking about? You know the guy Arnold Diaz, shame on you?
Yeah.
Yeah. He says, well, it's something about a hydrant. What are you talking about, a hydrant? He says, yeah, and they got a copy of your report. I said,
Oh
"Thanks."
my God.
So I grabbed my aide. I said, come on, let's go down and see what's going on. And there's Arnold Diaz with the CBS truck. So I said,
Shame on you.
Come around the other way. I get out of my uniform. I just put a sweater on, and I start walking down the block, and I'm looking over, and I'm like, I don't believe this. It's this, $10 million brownstones, Here's the hydrant they just put in. 15 feet away is another hydrant. What do you think the scam that was going on? It was later on in the paper at the end of Giuliani administration. They were getting these because now the guy had a free open parking space for his limousine in the morning and all that. So, okay, it's a hydrant. What do I care? So now I go home.
Wow.
I say to my wife, usually you're watching Seinfeld or something. I said, I'm going to watch the news. She goes, what do you mean? I said, I just want to watch the news. So now it gets shame on you.
No.
I got my report. My name is blocked out and all that. And I remember my wife saying, what idiot did that? And I said, the same idiot that married you, sweetheart.
Oh.
But when you hear what happens next, now I'm on the staff. This is now an investigation with the IG.
Oh,
and now
this is why I don't do reports.
So now I go up to Sal Casano, and this is what another thing you learn. They don't tell you this when you're coming on the staff. I say, Sal, I got to go down. Hey, who's going to represent me? He says, you don't have anybody represent you. You're not a union anymore, technically. And even though we continue to pay union dues, you're really out of the union. And so I said to Sal, because I have a certain way, I said, listen, I ain't paying for a lawyer. I'm going back to deputy chief. I ain't paying for a lawyer. And about an hour later, Al Hagen calls me up, and he goes, we don't want you back in our union. He's skin around. He says, I can't believe what you did. But he says, but being that you're still paying union dues, we're going to represent you. And when I went there, I'm going to tell you, to me, they were looking for a fall guy. And the only report they had was my report. And then I finally said to the guy, I said, let me ask you a question. When the DEP crew came to tear up the street, did they not see the other hydrant? Did they not want to call somebody? And they said, yeah. And then it went away, but it's just, here's this bullshit thing. And weirdest things happen on this job. So, it's far from what happened on 9/11. So now we go to Manhattan Borough Command, and, we walk, everybody thinks taking these jobs. There's a big, this is what they don't tell you when you don't have representation. You no longer get money in the annuity fund. You don't make overtime or comp time. You get paid if you work 100 hours, but paying you for 35. And then, when you hear about the buyout, you can get the buyout if you had time coming on or you banked your vacation time. I'm not complaining. Listen, you take that job, you take the job, but don't think that there's a lot of perks to this. There's not a lot of perks. The guy you want to be is the driver to that guy. That's the guy. And especially when you're working my hours, they had no problem. Hey, Chief, don't worry about it. I don't have. I don't
pick you up, no problem.
He's on the big clock, and I'm working
1464, Chief.
And I'm working for free. So the first thing I got tasked with, and I want to talk about, is the incident management team. And if we look back, when you look at the management of the department, we had everybody come out of the woodwork to try to help us. The Southwest Incident Management Team from the Wildland Group, they're the ones who straightened us out. Because they were already there in New York, but they weren't going to push this. Daniel Proby was the team commander, and we were just breaking down by the fourth or fifth day. We're working around the clock, mentally, we're physically being tired, and you're not making good decisions. And we weren't built for that. We were everything up until that day we handled. In '93 we had the bombing. We handled. It didn't affect our operations, but now we got whacked, and Dan Nochulki grabbed Pete Hayden on the side, explained who he was, and Pete realized that they could help us out. He said, when can you get your team here? He said, we've been here for 2 days. We've been waiting for you to access to help us. And they're the ones who got us into a structure to properly plan organize everything down at that site, get the communications up and running. And after now we got into the phase of recovery, and now we're playing out of it. And Pete Hayden said, Tom, you got to figure out a way to get us develop an incident management team. So, we got the ball rolling, and then I gave it over to Bob Maines and Jimmy Manahan. And the thing that way to turn the incident management team for an organization is when we went to New Orleans, because we went down there with 300 guys. They sold us a bill of goods, told us they had everything ready for us. They had a place for us to stay, had food and water. And those guys that were there the first 2 weeks said, if it wasn't for the incident management team, we went deep shit. And because we had that structured team, it just organized everything. And now the rank and file saw the benefit of it. And it was after New Orleans we started getting guys in the officers' rank, captains, lieutenants, and firemen stepping up. And now that incident management team has been a boon to the fire department, boon to the city that they've been used. Jimmy Kane was running it up until recently before he got out. Now it's Dean Coaster and Steve Proby. So if it's anybody, hey, the guys that really helped us out the most were wildland firefighters. Because just think about it, they go into the forest. They got to bring everything with them. They're not just shooting. They got to bring their rigs. They got to bring food, shelter, water, protection,
everything. Right.
So that's something that we're not built for. And that has benefited the department by now we do better planning for events that we're just better organized. And if something happens now, we improved our recall procedures. I think we still have a stash of equipment for 300 guys. We don't want everybody running to the incident because it just adds to the confusion, and it's going to wear us out over a period of days. So we have a better recall procedure. And I know why everybody wants to go there, but hey, sometimes we got to back off to control that aggression. We have equipment for 300 guys. We're going to have the incident management team. We got better trained units within the SOC command and the SOC support trucks and all that, so that we're better structured for that. If we ever get that next incident, we thought we were going to have it right after it, and here we are 20 years later, and we're still waiting. But I think we're better prepared for that as we do it. So now we're in the Manhattan Borough Command, and that was just trying to reorganize as a structure. I had Harry Myers, Ronnie Mernon, Paul Crishy, and the staff, and Suzette came down from the 3rd Division with me, and my aide Frank Heffernan, and it was just trying to put the borough command back together and move forward and create the incident management team amongst other stuff. I don't know where else you want to go. I said we're already over 2 hours and we didn't even get to the staff yet.
That's what happens, kid.
So where do you want to go? You tell me where you want to go.
Well, we could do the training, right? You started. When did you go?
What happened here? So now I go to then they asked me to be the borough commander. And to be honest, when they asked me to be the borough commander, I said, listen, why do you ask me to be the borough commander? You got the next guy, because it was Eddie Coletta, another young guy who early in his career had the health issues. He had to leave. I said, Eddie Coletta should be the borough commander. And they said, no, we want you to be the borough commander. And I said, can I call you right back? So I called up Eddie. I said, listen, Eddie, they're Rex and me. I think you should be it. And Eddie, the way he is, class guy, he said, Tom, take it. We'll be a good team. I really don't care. So I go over to Brooklyn Borough Command with Eddie, and there for a while. And probably the thing I learned there was about marketing the fire department. And this is what I mean by that: is that we had the closing of the firehouses, and believe me, a fucking horrendous time. Because we're like, I'm going to be honest with you, it was almost like a mutiny on the staff saying, hey, we're not, this is not what we signed up for. This is not the right thing to do. And the guys, who actually talked us out of it was the union guys. And they said, listen, this is above your pay grade. This is, to me, this was symbolic cuts. If they can cut the fire department, they can cut everybody else. That doesn't make it right. And the 2 union guys said, listen, if you guys leave, it's a one-day story. The story is going to be over, and we'd rather have you guys stay here. And that's where a lot of us stayed. And when I was the Mountain Deputy Borough Commander, it wasn't on my radar screen because the only unit we were going to lose 44 injured because 252 was. And I got to give credit to Eddie. Eddie called me up and said, listen, I found out the reason why they want 252 over there is not for the technical rescue, it was for the hazmat end. He says, hey, can we see if 44 injured would want to become a hazmat engine? And I said, let me go talk to them. And they were a great engine company, solid company. They always got good officers. And I went to meet them. I always had a good rapport with them. I said, listen, I think we might have found a way to, and plus they had a buff that had political weight. I said, but I think you guys have to agree to be a hazmat engine, and everybody, it's got to be all in or none of it. We're not going to take 10 guys want to leave. No, it's got to be a group. And I only think one guy left that I know of. And so Eddie, we were talking to operations, and they said, okay, leave 252, and so we be able to keep 44. But now when I become the borough commander, it is 10 days, 2 weeks before they're closing 4 firehouses in Brooklyn Borough Command. And, it's the monkey in the room. It could have been quite easy just to sit in the office and let it happen. I said, no, we're going to those firehouses. And somebody's got to face them. And I said, listen, there's nothing it's 2 weeks away. The only thing I can commit to you is you tell me where you want to go. I will do everything to get to that spot. If I can't get you the first one, I'm going to, and I talked to Sal. I said, Sal, this is, we got to,
I remember that, Chief. I remember that.
And some things didn't work out, but most of them did. And I mean, I had a captain call me up and say, hey, I hear I'm getting these schools. I don't want these guys. I had other guys. And I said, listen, don't you understand? They're losing their firehouse. They're losing their whole identity. And then I said, you know what? I wasn't thinking about that. I was just trying to solve this. And I said to him, if you call me back in 6 months that these guys that you made an effort, and I said, I'll take those guys out. And I never got that call back. They had a few problems, but and look where they took the companies out of. Now those areas of they're occupied as Midtown Manhattan. And just with the closing, this doesn't hurt that side. But what people don't realize, we lost 40% of our civilian staff. That's why when people call, I can't get anything down, they were gone. I mean, I was dealing with people. Hey, where's oh no, they got let go. I mean, it's constant. So they took a big rock too, and hurt the organization. Because as much as we complain about, I can give you a whole plus side of what a lot of the civilians do for us. So just getting a whole hurl of the closing of the firehouses. I mean, it was just brutal. And next thing I know, I was talking earlier before the thing started where Von Essen took away a lot of chief's jobs, like the staff, like he took away training, communications, chief of personnel, chief of support services. Why he did it, I mean, I don't know. He's Tom Von Essen. And so what was happening around the time was, I'm trying to think of who the chief of fire prevention. I don't know if it was Jimmy Jackson, or it might have been Jimmy Jackson. Health issues had to leave. So everybody on the staff was like, hey, who's going to be the next chief of fire? Yeah. Nobody even wants to push the button for I think it's the 4th floor. You got to be a brave soul to push forward. And nobody wants to bring it up in front of the commissioner at the commissioner's meeting. And we're sitting there, a week goes by, another week goes by. And now we're in the next meeting with the commissioner. The meeting ends. The competitor looks over to me and goes, say, hey, Tom, can you come to my office? I need to talk to you about something. So he leaves, and as soon as he leaves, we got a winner! We got a winner! And I'm like, I can't believe this is happening to me. It's like, it's like, so I go into his office, and I'm sitting opposite him, and he goes, Tom, we got to make some changes around here. We got to reassign people. And he says, all I hear is great things about you. And so I'm like, they're fattening up the cow to slaughter.
With the PI.
He goes, I've talked to people about this position, and unanimously, your name is the first choice. And I'm like, there's the knife in the back. He goes, so I want you to consider getting rid of Dr. Hittman. I want you to be the new uniform chief of training. He didn't get the ing out of training, and I said, I'll do it. He goes, you sure you don't want to think about it? I said, shit, I thought you were going to ask me to be the chief of fire prevention, and I'm taking my name out of that one. And he starts laughing. So now I go back. They're still having a meeting. I walk in like with bat and slam the pads on the table, and everybody's just staring at me. And I'm like, just shaking my head. And I go, hey, what happened? I says, well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm the new chief of training, and one of you assholes are going to be the new chief of fire prevention. That's when Jimmy Jackson or Pat, but they were better suited for it. It's a very difficult job. There's a lot of politics involved. A lot, and it wasn't a benefit. I probably could have did a job, but I did a good. I mean, look at Tommy Jensen. Tommy Jensen has an engineering degree from Cooper Union. You sort of want people in there with Joe Jordan was there for a while, and same thing. Yeah. So now I take over training, and to be honest with you, I had no idea what I was getting into. everybody thinks the chief of training is the guy in the turret, and I said, that's
That's
a chief
the
The ivory
That's-
tower.
That's peeking at you as you're doing the Irish exit.
Yeah, I said, no, I got the EMS Academy, the CFRD program. I got the fire safety education, civilian training. Then I became the super of Fort Taunton. I got the Fire Academy, and it was just a great time. Yeah, actually, it was a great time because grants were coming available. So I go to the Fire Academy. And listen, I want to give a shout out to all those guys, Nick Santangelo, to Steve Garrett, to Jack Mooney, to Jimmy Hodgson, to Tommy, and then Tommy. Even now, you got two great guys. Chucky Downey is the Fire Academy, and Frank Lieb. And for the life of me, I don't know why Frank is the acting chief of training. Here's a guy who's really done I think has done a great job over the last few years. And I think what people sometimes I don't think people at the high levels of the department, they're not looking at why. How come Frank Lieb isn't? Why is he only acting? They're saying, hey, why isn't this guy getting the title? It's not. They're not looking negative at Frank Lieb. They're looking at the leadership, saying, what is going on here? So Frank has done a great job. And I think training is once again in good hands. So I meet with Nick Santangelo and Steve Gary. Steve was the XO. And I was just telling what the feedback I was getting from the chief of department and the commissioner where we wanted to go. And the problem with training wasn't that Nick Santangelo wasn't doing his job. Steve Garrity wasn't doing his job. And everybody down the line is they put the civilian in charge, Dr. Hitman, and he was going to create the FDNY University, which was a great idea, except he realized how hard it was going to be, and it made a left turn to Ace Ponzi and all that other crap. But one of the benefits he did was people he brought into the department, and one of them is a guy, Stan Klein. And here's a guy, when I took over training, he was 62 years old. He's still there. He's 80 to 83 or something like that. Loves to fight.
We used to deal with him in rescue school all the time.
Before he got out of the Board of Education, he was involved with their budgeting and scheduling. And that's stuff I had no idea about. And he was able to explain to me what's expense money, capital money, what's fungible, how do you do this? And I could go to him and say, Stan, I'm going to run a class for every lieutenant. It's going to be an 8-hour course. They're going to be done overtime. Give me a budget, because that's the first thing you look for. If you don't have the money, you can't do anything. So why bother doing all the other work? But once you had the money, and within a short time, here it is. And he was a godsend, great. And then Lizette Perez, who was my PAA, and she was outstanding too. And we had a guy from Sheffield Avenue, Bobby Higgins. And Bobby Higgins came into work every day, ready to go at the crack of noon to work real hard. But he stayed there late, and he did a good job. And then later on, he did the Proby school. So we had a little Sheffield Avenue in there, and so now we come training, and now it's just okay, where we want to go with this. And and to a lot of stuff, I got to give credit to Steve. It's Steve, because what you look at when you're the chief of training, you want the right guy to be the guy in the Fire Academy, and I had that. I had that with Nick. I had that with Steve. I had that with Jack Mooney, because what they do is they bring in a posse of guys that you don't even know about. It's their group. Like with Steve was George Grammers, Chris Iser, and all that, and Jack had his guys. And we just said we got to improve tactical training. And we looked at the flashover simulators, and now once they sold me on an idea, I had to find the money. I was the money. I wasn't the idea guy. It was like, okay, here's what we're looking to do. How can we do it better? And you just find the right people, and they're out there in the department. So we started with the flashover simulator, and then we got that from the Leary Foundation. Shout out to the FDNY Foundation and Irene Sullivan, who was the grant person, and later on worked with the foundation. Where we're going back and forth about marketing in the department. Here's what I left out when I was talking about closing those firehouses. When I visited one of the firehouses, the unit was out. So me and Eddie just stand there. I'm walking around and just looking around. And I was like, wait, what's on that wall over there? And you know what was on the wall? It was about 9 CFRD saves. Like they had it away from like everything else. It was like in an off spot. And when I was looking at it, I said, you know what? Why didn't we find those 9 people and put them in front of the firehouse? Because the people in the neighborhood, they're not worried about fires. I mean, but medical situations, like we could have did a better job. And that's one thing I picked up when, we went to that foamy course, the Fire Officers Institute, that from Columbia University professors, that's Capetta, that originally was the staff, and now we have chiefs going to it.
Marketing.
And we don't know how to sell. We just want to be in the firehouse and think that everybody's going to love us. Everybody's going to, because I went to community board meetings as the borough commander, where you go with these 10 community boards, And when you're telling them what we're currently doing, they had, like, we were doing, there was a fire in the Atlantic Avenue line, and I was explaining to them, what happened and how we do the emergency exits and all. You guys do that? And these are the most politically astute people in the neighborhood.
Yeah, they have no idea.
They don't know that we did the hydrants. They don't know that we do this. And so we don't know how to sell ourselves. So what me and Eddie did, I said, you know what? We're going to go around to all the different politicians, from the city council to the state reps, and we put a report together just for their area. Who are the units? What special units did we create from 9/11? What the fire duty was? Was there any rescues? How many CFRD saves we did? What inspections? Just to let them know that you got to sell yourself. And for a lot of things that I did as training is because I went to these politicians, and then from the Leary Foundation. Then we the training vehicles that was the borough presidents, like working with the foundation, and we made a presentation because we had the PSS system. And that was like, how do we keep the training ongoing? It's one thing to give them the initial training and we expect them to do in the Firehouse. So we came up with that, Craig Silvino and a bunch of other guys, where you force your way in, do the search, and you use a PSS. And we went to a borough president, and then they get their name on it. And then they get another guys. The same thing with the fire safety vehicles I got that, you took to a borough, Helen Marshall gave it, and we brought the rig out to Staten Island. And next thing I know, the Staten Island borough president, he's buying us a van, and then he bought another van, then he bought a training vehicle. So we need to do a better job marketing ourselves. It starts at the top of the department. But even at the rank and file, hey, let them know what you're doing. When the union asks you to step up to go to these things, it serves a purpose. They don't know who you are. All they hear is all the nonsense that, hey, it's the all white guys. It's all, and nobody sees. Right. They just hear the noise. They hear the noise. So, you want to be out there selling, to sell. That's why I was mentioning before about marketing in the department. And then, we went, then we were looking at how can we challenge the firefighters more? We built a field house, building 12, and you can't use water in it. How ridiculous is that? And then Steve came to me, he says, you know what? We're going to get these shipping containers and we'll create a whole extension of building 5. We can move walls around. And, it was great. I think it was a great drill. And, when you have companies calling you, because the legacy that, that I think Steve has and what I try to do in training is, I know they don't want to be here. They don't want to they want to just stay in the firehouse. But the day they come here, whatever we drill on that day, we teach them that day. I want at least to know that when they left the gate, they left a better firefighter, a better officer, and a better unit. So we're going to go to that. We're going to give them the best. What they do with it, that's an operations problem. That's another. We're just going to give them the best product we can, and you just find the right people. And I can name 500 people, that just stepped up and did a great job for me. And so it's the Moai drill. Then we got the driving simulator for NASCAR, and then we went to Leary Foundation for this, and then the extension of the tunnel. Just right now, Frank Lieb, we had the foundation dinner there, and they're doing a mock-up of a plane over in the soccer field.
Yeah.
So he's walking around. I think it was a guy from JetBlue. I think he said JetBlue, and Frank started explaining. He says, "Oh, what do you need? Call me. I'll get you all the stuff that you need."
Oh,
so
shit.
It's like marketing yourself, letting them see what you do.
Surely you must be kidding.
To be out there, and then now, but also to more important. That's a secondary, is to give the rank and file a good product. And I could say, whoever I went to, they just made and then they just kept raising the bar. And the SOC world was a separate, entity in itself. And I was, concerned, now and okay, what extra training can we give to the field units? That's when we went to the water rescue training, and then we went to do the subway MCI incidents that Steve had a lot to play in there. So we did, we just did a lot of coordination with a lot of people. As I'm all over the place because I'm trying to get 10 years of. I don't know where to go with it, but just one thing I'm going to talk about the Proby school. You hear a lot of noise about the Proby school, and just think about this: all the noise you hear about the Proby school. We had Cohen, who's the lawyer, that's the liaison, the court liaison. Cohen, you have Garifides as the judge, and Cohen is the overseer of what's going on in the fire department. Now, I used to have to give them a weekly report that went to them, went to the Department of Justice, to the fire commissioner. At the end of the week, I had to show who resigned, why they resigned, what did we do to stop them from resigning, who got hurt, what got hurt, what's all the breakdown of the class. I mean, this is just, and you hear all this noise. And we never lowered the standards in a academy. But one thing we did was we enhanced the ability of everybody to get out of the academy, to provide them the information, the assistance that they needed to do it. So Cone showed up at the fire academy with 5 other lawyers and paralegals and 3 fire chiefs from around the country as subject matter experts. They were there. They already had the information on the Proby school. They were there for 4 hours. I come in on the hot wash on the end, listening to them at the end, and I looked directly at the guy Cohen and said, listen, I know you got to do a report. I would rather know right now if there's something that you are bothered by or you think is we're not doing a good job, because I'd rather start working on it now than waiting 3 or 4 weeks. And his response was, Chief, I don't have any problem with anything that's going on out here. But then you hear all the noise from everybody else, you know, and that's what gets to play. So these guys in the Proby school, they've done a great job. To be honest with you, I was against the expansion of Proby school. The way the Proby school got, you know, was at 13. I think it was at 13 weeks. And the reason why the Proby school expanded was because they were going to lower the education requirements to get into the fire department. And when Bloomberg was challenged, because he turned around and said, we're going to improve and add on to training to make up for it, similar to like what the cops had. And I remember saying, what are we going to do for another? Because it was going to go to 20. It was going to go from 13 to 21. And I was like, this is a big jump. Because no, it is. Listen, what was I tasked with? Getting about everybody out as best we can out of whoever showed up in the school. Now, when you add on this extra time, it's more strenuous. It's already a physical program. You don't gain a lot of time because you got to keep stretching hoses. You're doing all the other stuff. We're going to add on education, more education stuff. That's going to be harder to get out of the Proby school. And so I was somewhat against it, but you got to do what you got to do. So this isn't a reaction to the education requirements going down. And the first time we went to the 15 weeks, week 14, they started falling apart, that first class. It was, you could see it. I'm like, oh man, what are we going to do now? This is a long haul for them. And that's when we were sitting around and saying, we got to figure out something here. And that's when we came up with the Firehouse detail that, hey, you know what? Let them get out.
Takes them out. That's why they take them out of there.
Takes the class out, takes the pressure off. They get to see what they're shooting for. And hopefully they come back revived. And so you have like a 2-week period where it just takes the pressure off. And even for the instructors, because they're working, when you work, listen, the Probies are coming in 2 different sessions. The instructors are there.
Right.
It's a long day. And so, I think they do a great job. We never, in my opinion, lowered any standards, but we gave them every assistance, right? We provided them remedial work. Everything's explained to them when they do something wrong, what they got to do better. So, right now, I think they're still, hopefully they're still putting out a good product. And, some days not every Proby is going to be 100 watt and 90 watt. Some are going to be 70 watts, It's civil service.
We say that all the time.
when you get that 70 watt person, understand he or she is a 70 watt person. Let's get the best out of him and not try to expect him to do everything at once. Let's make him the best knowledgeable person. If they're in the engine, the next backup, make sure they can do that job. And a lot of times we run into a problem when they go to trucks because you're gonna stand out right away. And but
we have that problem with Coobs.
It's. I know I'm rambling on here.
Hey, Pete, look at Pete. You got a chuckle out of that one.
Oh, you got a chuckle out of Pete at my expense. Thank you.
But if I ever sat and explained to you everything that we, from the time before, as their candidates to them getting out of the Proby school, people cannot, they say, why are you doing it? Well, you know why we're doing it? Because we're going to do what we think is right. So nobody can challenge us that we didn't do our best to get them out of the Proby. And if they didn't graduate, that was on them. It wasn't on us. So I know I rambled on here because I know we're getting out here. We're already up there.
You're good.
2.5.
Yeah, we're getting into the outer limits, guys.
So
we're losing Pete.
What's the remote training?
No, we're pushing
Okay, Pete, you lead the way.
Well, the only thing we have after that is I promoted to assistant chief in 2010, and then 15 you retired. So where do you want to go from there, Chief?
I don't know.
I want to say this one thing. I wish the New York public school system operated like you guys. Not lower the standards, but try to teach them up to pass the standards that are there.
You mentioned that. Just so you know how far we went. we went to talk to educate about what's the best font size to use. When you're given a test.
Oh my goodness!
We
gracious.
even talked to guys who are on our job who are teachers, who are college professors and stuff, and they even told us like how they highlight certain words. And even when we give quiz times in the Board of Education. So say you had a 25 question test, they would say that you would need 40 minutes to do that test. But if you have some type of disability, you should get 60 minutes for that test. Okay. That's the time we use. We don't use we use the time because notice we don't know who's coming into class with any type of, dyslexic or whatever. So we even went that far to see what's the proper font size, what's the proper time to use to give them a test. So, so a lot of, I think,
Interesting.
and it's not discredit to me. It's I can name, 30 or 40 guys that have been through, have helped run that program. Steve Sullivan was the first chief that we put in there because it was just getting so overwhelming. It was just taking too much of my time, and the chief of the fire academy. And so, yeah, it was a poser guy. Yeah, see, I knew I'd get somebody in there. We got Bobby Higgins. We got, we talked about Jack Mooney. Listen, that's
always got to slip them in there.
We're like a Rish, Chief. You can't get rid of us,
Yeah, a Rish.
It's like, yeah,
Rish, that's it.
All right, Pete, where do you want to go? Do you want to go to the old school tip of the day?
Well, first and foremost, hold on a second here. We have a little something to do, boys. Hold on a second.
Get after it, Pete, will you?
I'm getting after it. As you guys know, we have nothing but the best sponsors in the game, and our sponsor for the old school health and safety tip of the day tonight is the First Responder Center for Excellence, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting the lives and livelihoods of first responders. Their education and research initiatives aim to bring greater awareness and understanding to the challenges of the health, safety, and well-being of firefighters, EMS personnel, and other first responders. The goal is to reduce line of duty injuries and deaths, as well as occupational illnesses. They are an affiliate of the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation. Now, today's old school health and safety tip of the day is the actions that you take today best protect your health will pay dividends long into the future. Your future self will thank you. All right. So if you guys want to visit the First Responder Center for Excellence, you can go ahead and hit that QR code, use your iPhone or your phone app to scan the QR code or visit the firstrespondercenter.org. Good stuff they're doing over there.
It works.
Absolutely. Of course it does. That's a QR code, classic.
Oh, you did it.
Yeah, that was good stuff as always. But you know what time it is now, though?
No, I
What time
don't.
is it, Pete?
Ooh, it's time for the old school tip of the day. Day. Take it away, Chief.
Well, I didn't really put a lot of time into thinking about this, but listening to Jay Jonas and John Norman and a few others recently, and we were talking earlier about the cell phone use in the firehouse. I hope guys who come on the job realize that there's a lot of fun. You get a lot of good times. I remember John Vigiano when he was in 176 and went over there because he had gotten a couple of Probies. And I remember John saying to the kid, "This is the greatest job in the world, but when we have a bad day, we have a bad day. And we need to prepare for those bad days." And that's why we need to drill every day, ask a lot of questions. Every run is a learning experience. Take that time. Even on BI, I remember with some of the guys, when I think it was Billy Blage, he would say, "Hey, what are we going to do here at 3:00 in the morning? Like, what's our operations? Like what are the Irons team going to do if we had a fire in this building?" And then after we just did a quick critique of the fire, what our positions would be, you say, "Hey, come on, let's go in and let's see what's going to bite us in the ass at 3:00 in the morning." They'd take a look at these buildings. So use every day as a learning experience. Another thing that John talked about, pick out those the people in the firehouse that you have respect for, see how they operate, and that's what you want to mirror image to hopefully get to that point. And pick out these role models in all your ranks, and whether it's Nick Visconti, Richie Fannings, or the Billy Ostranders, and just you will never know everything you need to know in this job. And another thing, when I was in the Chiefs Command course running that, one of the instructors, Rob, I don't know whether it was Rod O'Connor or Dennis Cross. I remember him saying one day, never be stuck with what you know. Always be looking for the information that you don't know anything about, and always read about the job, because you can have 40 years on this job and there's things that you're never going to pick up on. So I think the old tip is, hey, enjoy the job that you have. It's a great job. It's what you make of it. You got to take the attitude that you're going to be the best firefighter that day. The company you're working in is going to be the best company that day. Or when you're that chief, I say you're going to be that best chief that these guys could have at the fire. Just like Jay Jonas told the guys in the 6th truck, "Hey, you stay here. I'm going to make you a better. We're going to be one of the best truck company in Manhattan." And it's all about attitude. I think I was talking with Tommy Richardson, said it, that Vigiano said, "I don't care who you give me somebody with heart, and it's going to give me everything they got, and I'll make them a fireman." So have a good attitude, want to be that best firefighter, and do everything you can, because when we have that bad day, it's a bad day, and it has a terrible impact on our organization and the families that we the families, an impact that has on our family. So I know I went rambling on that too. So
That's good.
just like that.
Awesome.
No rambling. Excellent.
I
Excellent.
appreciate you guys having me on. I'm sorry we rushed at the end, because I know people don't want to sit here.
No.
No.
But,
That was perfect.
with training, I was very, I get a lot of accolades from a lot of people. I was just a guy at the top, and guys with Steve Garrity, Jack Mooney, Christy Biasi in the Proby school. I can name you. I can go on. Frank Montagna, the Chiefs Command Coach, Jimmy Bob. I mean, I can. I've got probably named 500 guys if I had the opportunity. And everybody I went to, they came to me, and with a problem. I said, "Well, you're willing to work on it?" And I said, "I'll do everything I can to make it work." And they stepped up. Can I give you one thing if you don't mind?
Yeah, go, Chief.
About Danny Butler, about the report. And then another time, I'm walking through the fire academy. I'm walking, and then there's a guy talking with 2 other guys, and he notices me. How when a guy's he's looking, I say, okay, he's going to grab me by the time. And as I got up to him, he said, "Hey, and listen, a lot of guys call me Tom. Who cares? But they call you Chief for Tom. They recognize you. They recognize you. Just to say hello, I was happy." He starts going on a rant. He was a covering lieutenant. He said, "I'm at this auto accident. We look like fucking assholes. We couldn't cut the post. The PD showed up. They had these brand new cutters, and they cut the post." He's giving me information. I said, "Okay, where were you working?" I said, I got to do something else. As soon as I finish, I will go over to the extrication unit." So I go over to the extrication unit. I said, "Listen, the only thing about it," he said, "Chief, we heard about this yesterday, and I pretty much got an idea what happened here." And what happened, this was around the time that the high end cars, BMWs and stuff, they were putting the titanium steel in the posts.
Yep.
And we can cut it with the cutters. So he tells me, he says, "But Hearst has these cutters now, can cut it." I said, "Okay." I said, "Okay, now it's on me. Now everybody just gave me the problem." So before I go to South Casano to say, "Hey, here's the problem and here's the solution," you talk about civilians. Robin Monday's son, I don't know if you ever heard the name.
Yep.
Monday's she was in tech services. You couldn't find a better person, to solve problems. So I call her up. I said, "Robin, listen, Hearst has these news cutters. I need to get the cost. And then how many do we have to get? Because I got to go up to Sal. I'm going to explain everything what happened at this incident." And she says, "Hold on, I'll get back to you." So I'm starting to write the report. I'm getting, because I had everything written down and typing up the report. And 20 minutes later, she calls me back. She says, "I'm getting 25 delivered on Monday, and I'll get 25. I said, "Robin," I said, "where are you getting the money from? How are you paying for this?" She said, "Chief, you asked me you had a problem. You told me what the solution is. They're being delivered. You just have to tell me where they're going." And so just like that, within just like me,
And do.
So I said, "Start out with the SOC support trucks. And then just after that, to make it easy for you, do it division by division." And then she says, "I just added it to every new rig order that's part of the tool list." So we would have eventually solved it. But by this guy coming to me, and now, he's a new lieutenant. I know how to. So I went to the extrication unit. They were already on top of it. And now we just and the big thing is finding money. And her answer was, Chief, you asked me to get you the tools, we got it. I said, okay, Robin, that's it. That's all
I
you
wouldn't
need to
think that most guys on the job would think that things happen that fast. Like,
And here's another. You may think everybody at the top of this organization knows stuff. They don't. We're in our own little world. We have, we've got a limited staff. We got a million things going on, and there's things that are going on around us that, we need to be told. And everybody think, they should know. No, we don't know about it all the time. Like whether it's the webbing or whether it's this tool.
yeah.
Take the time, put a report together, and now I can make a decision.
Right.
Don't give me something that now I got to find somebody. Hey, what are they talking about here? And because think about it, I was the chief of training. I had a PAA, Lizette Perez, who was excellent. Stan Klein, who was 62, now he's 82, and Bobby Higgins. That was my staff. I mean, I had a fire academy, but for getting stuff done and, getting it to the next level, it was me. And I just want to give more shout out to my drivers because I had excellent guys from Frank Heffernan to Van Johnson, Bobby Riley, Dave Steinhauer, Mike Ryan. You have a good rapport with your aides. Like they're willing to tell you the bad stuff. Hey, listen, you don't know about this. This is what's going on. And when you're sitting in the car with them for 8 hours a day, you find and you can run stuff off them to get the perspective of the firefighter. And that's what I always try to do. Anything I worked on, I gave it to people. Hey, you're a lieutenant. Can you read this and understand what I'm trying to get across? So don't step up. If you think there's a problem, don't complain about it. Put a report together. Make some effort, or be that guy to say, hey, and if you need somebody to work on this, I'll do it. And I had a ton of guys like that stepped up, and you just give them, you trust them, you respect them. They'll get the job done. We have great guys in this job that are willing to work. Just give them the support, and they'll do it. And I can ramble on. I remember Dan Tracy. I was in the Flips as a camp program, and we had an officer before. It was almost like telling us to give charges to everybody. And so now Dan Tracy comes in, a Watkins Street guy. I mean, while he was living, he had a scholarship named after him. And I remember he's a patrician-looking guy, just a great boss. And he said, always remember, they're the ones that put out the fire, and we need to take care of them. And that's what you always remember that. You're not going to do anything illegal or unethical, but don't forget they're putting out these fires. That when we have these events, they're at the tip of the spear. And always remember that. Always remember that. So that's
it. Seems to be a common thread for the last couple of episodes.
Yeah, it is. The men.
Take care of the men.
John Norman was a big player. Jay, I got to be honest, I had once asked Jay to do something and he turned me down, and but I asked him why he turned me down. But we have, if you look, that's the common thread to all these people, whether it's the Jay Jonas's, you look, Steve Garrity, step up and help the organization. Don't just complain. Don't be the guy that, hey, if you think something needs to be changed, well, be that guy. Be the guy that's willing to do that. We're fortunate that we have as many guys like that. So
you cannot say Chief Garrity. Yeah. He was tough, man. He got stuff done. He was a doer. There's no doubt about it.
And he could push people's buttons. And,
yeah.
Something. In most of the cases, because now when I was, guys would come to me and I said, listen, have you talked to Chief Garrity? Don't come to me without talking to him first, because that's the whole chain of command. And they would say, well, I said, no, you got to talk to him first. And then there were times when I said, Steve, what happened? And I understand why you did it, and, he didn't suffer fools gladly, but he gave it everything he had. He made everything better,
did that, without a doubt.
And it's just a shame that, he died for his 63rd birthday. He deserved, a lot of guys, whether it's Billy Hughes, who died, be buried this week, or Chief McKee, or to Fireman Lawrence, Yeah. We unfortunately we're at 304 now, 305.
Disgusting.
So and from what I understand, there's 2 more guys in hospice that I don't know who they are, but it's just a gift that keeps on giving to us. And but you know what? We moved on. We took a hit. And I think through a lot of work of a lot of people, and I think I got to give a shout out to guys like Pete Hayden, Frank Carruthers. They were there when everything was at its worst, and they moved this department forward through spirit. And here's Pete Hayden. He fell on the sword for us at the end. He knew that.
He did. Yep.
Everybody talks about the berets, and they don't remember that he's the guy that was in City Hall and he put his career on the line. And just on the berets, just because people don't know. you know why we had to get rid of the berets? You know why the decision? Because the parade people were going to throw us out of the parade. And Cassano and Hayden had to go hat in hand up into the Bronx to their meeting to meet with them to say, what do you need us to do? Because they were allegedly pissed off of some of our guys' behavior before, during, and after the parade. So what was the choice going to be? Get rid of the berets or stay in the parade? So, and he takes a hit for that. And they'll talk about the TVs. But meanwhile, he was the driving force, developing the incident management team, developing, all these programs to getting him, the grant money, the move ahead, Frank Carruthers, Sal, one after another. They just push this department ahead. And, it's easy to take shots at the guys at the top, but look what they're doing. Are they providing that product? And, it was a proud time to be on that staff. As we were, I remember when we got out, the first day we got promoted and Pat McNally, as we got sworn in, says, to 50% of the guys out there, we're good guys, and the other 50% think we suck. So it's like our job is to hold on to the 50 that think we're good guys. Let's keep them there. So you take those jobs knowing that. But I got to tell you, everybody I worked with on that staff gave everything they had, and a lot of them were impacted by 9/11 through their health issues. I mean, I can't believe John Norman has been out. I think he got out. He's been out 15 years, close to 12 years. I think he got out in 2007 or something like that. So it's just, you forget about how fast time goes.
Yeah, it goes fast, man.
Mike Weinlein to Jimmy Jackson. I mean, I can go on and on, guys. He stepped up, took these jobs, and I'm proud to be part of that staff that was that did this. We were a good team. Fortunately, we were the Al Haynes safety, Bobby Sweeney. That Billy Siegel and Sock guys who just stepped up. We were a good team. We had a lot of laughs. Whenever anything happened, you come in the morning, the first thing you find out what happened, the first thing you did was laugh about it and say, okay, but now how are we going to fix it? How are we going to put the genie back in the bottle? I think we had a good staff. I think we served the men well. And, hey, we just move on. And, the fire department's gone through. I heard for I know I'm rambling here. When I came on the job, it was right after the layoffs, the 3-for-1 list. The job is never going to be the same. Then the women came on. Oh, the job is over. Then it was the yellow fire trucks. Oh, look at this. And then 58 engine didn't want to give up their yellow. And then it was the priorities of coming in. Hey, I've heard this for 30 years.
Bunker gear. It's never ending.
It'll only fail if the people in the firehouse can, put it to make it. Just hold the fort in the firehouse, and we're going to be fine. You're going to be fine going ahead. I go to these, funerals guys are stepping up and doing the right thing, and a lot of them weren't here on 9/11. So
right.
That's it. I mean, I can keep going. I can go on for another 3 hours.
All right, Chief.
Maybe we lost half our audience about it.
No. Let's hang it on.
Thank you,
Chief. Great job.
Thank you for coming on the show. Really
appreciate it. Hopefully somebody's. I'll tell you what. If you get Cassano on this show, I'll give you $5,000. Okay?
All right.
I'll give you $5,000. You get Cassano on this show.
I'm gonna call Sal. Hey, Sal, you want to be $2,500
You want to
richer?
make $2,500 the hard way?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
No.
And Sal would be great. Sal's, it's just not his thing.
Not his cup of tea.
There's a lot of people like that.
I remember being in meetings at the end of the week where he could barely keep his eyes open because he was just burning the candle at both ends. And I know a lot of guys take shots at him, and I gave him a lot of agita, and but he always stood by me when I needed to be, when I needed that. So I want to thank him for that. So that's it. We got to end somehow.
All right. Ruffy, do you have anything you want to say?
No, I just with the shout outs that you were going to do. That's all.
Okay. Before we get to that, I want to remind you that me and Ruffy and Cliffy Dog will be at the Firehouse Magazine Expo 28th, 29th, and 30th in Ohio, booth 1802. Come out and see us. And the sad part of the show is we have, like we mentioned before, we have several line of duty deaths, 9/11 related. We have Chief Steve Garrity, Larry Montrose of Engine 65. He was lieutenant in Engine 21. Billy Hughes, ladder 123. Greg Lawrence, Engine 308, and Chief McKee in the 4-1 Battalion. So we're going to ring out the 5 bells for these brothers. May they rest in peace. Rest in peace, brothers. Chief, thank you for coming on, sharing your career with us, and thanks for your service. Like I said, everybody I talked to, we couldn't find one negative thing to bring up on you. For Christ's
Usually get a
sake.
little
You
couple
didn't
of
try
birds.
hard enough. You didn't try hard enough.
Petey, what do you got, bro? Take us out
Take
before
it
my
out.
voice
Yeah,
goes.
just hang with us, Chief, until we sign off. I'm going to do it quick tonight, guys, since we're running a little late. Audio, guys, you can listen to us everywhere on every player. If you're here on youtube.com/Gettin Salty Experience, like, subscribe, share. If you're on Instagram, we're at Salty Dog Inc. GettinSaltyApparel.com, guys. If you like cool firefighter apparel and accessories. Thank you to everyone who helped us out in the super chat tonight. We appreciate it. And anyone who is doing the YouTube version of Patreon, the super thanks. Facebook, guys, the Gettin Salty fans page. Just want to say something really quick about that. Announcement. We don't run the page, although we do admin the page. If you guys F around on there, you're going to find out. You know, there's a lot of BS going on that sometimes, you know, not a lot. Sometimes there's BS and people get tossed. So keep it smooth. Don't be political. Don't attack people for no reason. Don't sell stuff. I mean, it's all in the rules. Follow the rules. You don't get tossed. And then I don't have to get the emails. Hey, Pete, I got tossed. I don't know why you got tossed. Let me check why. Oh, wow. Okay. You were selling something. You're tossed. Anyway, moving on. Getting Salty ads, ads@gmail.com. If you want to advertise with the show, I'll send you my spiel. Getting Salty Experience @gmail.com for questions for our Q&As. CoopsPodcast@gmail.com for all the news show stuff, meaning helmet cam footage, fire footage, how to lady contest, fire photos, rig photos, table photos, your house photos, family photos, all that good stuff. Send it over to CoopsPodcast@gmail.com. And that is all the news that is fit to print.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter.
Boom.
My voice is gone. All right, Chief. Thank you. We'll see you guys. We have a show Monday before we shove off. Yes, we do.
Our
Okay.
last one before we shove off.
Yes. All right. We'll see you Monday night, guys. Stay low and go.
All right, everybody. We'll see you at the big one. Nice job, Chief.
Cheers, everybody.
Good night. Hope everybody was entertained.
All right. See y'all later.